Good evening, Internet, and welcome to Kenter at Your Own Risk, episode 64, where Kent and Chris will be discussing House of the Dragon, season 2, episode 4, the Red Dragon and the Gold, and later on in the week, Kent and Kevin will be doing the same thing due to the vicissitudes of life. It's only been 2 days since our last podcast. Excuse me. I'm doing pretty good. Kent, how about you?
I'm doing okay, hoping that this audio is doing what it should be doing. It looks better. And, it's been 2 days. Not a whole lot has happened. But, you know what? I have a question, first and foremost. This is related to, actually, what we were doing here. I was talking to Eric. It was either Saturday or Sunday. We played a lot of Elden Ring over the weekend. And we were talking about Harrenhal, and then he's like, is Reigns of Castamere the song about Harrenhal? Do you know if that's about Harrenhal?
I don't remember the hell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I know at one point I read up on it, but, many years ago. And really, it takes me only a few hours to forget things, so years, forget it. But otherwise, good. I mean, we had this... This is being hailed as the biggest episode to date. And, I mean, it's slightly less filler than last week's. So, I don't know. Like, this was actually, I don't know about you. For me, this was like the episode I've been waiting for. I was more excited about this episode than I had been since probably like the very first episode of the series, I think. From an excitement level, were you as hyped about it?
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess, the few things that I know coming forward have me a little bit more excited. And when we get to them, hopefully I remember this conversation that we're having so I can reference them. But Season 1 for me was just a lot of unknowns, so there was a lot to like and a lot to dig into. Season 2, so far, this is... I don't know if it's the best episode, maybe the second best. I really liked episode 1 too, but it definitely has the most action and consequences so far of all the Season 2 episodes that we've seen.
Yeah, and... So, I've kind of given up on avoiding spoilers at this point. And so, I felt it was very obvious that we were definitely getting a kill based on how hyped up this episode was online. And I had a general idea of a couple possibilities. I wasn't sure on the timeline of events. And then there's like this one scene in particular where it's just like, okay... yeah, you're going to die. Like, that was basically like how this episode kind of went for me. It was like, just waiting for that confirmation scene, and we had it. So, alright, let's kick this off. As I said to you before we went on here, like, there's a lot of stuff that happens beforehand that I took copious notes on, and then we have, like, this giant 20-minute scene at the end that's just a ton going on, but not a lot of notes. So we started at Harrenhal. Damon is in Dream, and he's entering the throne room, and he's approaching Rhaenyra, who's young Rhaenyra, who's on the Iron Throne, and she's speaking Old Valyrian to him, and this is an exact mirror shot of something from Season 1 when Rhaenyra enters the throne room and Daemon enters, or Rhaenyra enters and Daemon's sitting on the throne. Do you remember that? Okay.
Yes.
I don't know. I think it was like episode 4 or something. I don't really know. But anyways, she's just talking shit to him about, Viserys loving her more than him, which... duh. I don't know. I feel like that's an obvious thing. Like, you're going to probably love your daughter more than your brother. But he gets pissed off, and he cuts her head off. And then the head just keeps talking shit. And she tells him that there's been a raven, and he wakes up and his right hand is covered in blood, but only for like a second, and then the blood's gone. And then we have Sir Simon Strong saying, hey, we have a raven here. And apparently the castles of Rosby and Stokeworth both fell without siege. They raised Aegon's banner. Extra crisp on chicken strips. I'm really getting lame with my names at this point. That army is tripled in strength. Harrenhal could be their next target. And then there was a little cameo, Chris, and I don't know if you picked up on the cameo here, but we're walking past and we see a black goat, and I'm pretty sure that was Black Phillip from The Witch. Pretty sure.
There were two things in this three things that I was like, what the fuck? The first is when Daemon, and I don't remember if this is in any order, but Daemon is following a dude who looks like it could be Aiden
that's like
through one of his dream sequences, and then it turns out it's him with a fucking eye patch on. The second was, I don't even remember the second, but yeah, I'm like, there's a fucking goat just sitting in the middle of the fucking room. And then, I mean, it might make a little more sense when we get an introduction of another character later on in the episode, so we'll have
dude, I was so excited. and sure enough, we'll get into that, but basically, let's see. Excuse me. Daemon, he meets Oscar, who is the grandson of Lord Oscar Tully, and this guy is only like a teenager. Basically, the kid doesn't really want to do much. Daemon's like, all right, well, smother his fucking face with a pillow and speed up the inheritance, and then maybe we can get some work done. And the kid's like, no, that's not how we do it. And we find out that Oscar's dead, died young. I don't really know if that really matters. Lord Grover is the one that raised him. And then he asked about Brackens or Blackwoods, which one's on his side. So I was surprised that Daemon didn't know which was on his side, Blackwoods or Brackens. Does that seem odd to you that he doesn't know that, or is that perfectly normal given circumstance?
It did, but I think it's the first example of feeding into something that happens in a later scene in this episode.
All right.
Like, yes, it does seem very odd that Daemon wouldn't know which one were on his side, since, like, ostensibly, these are the two houses that kicked off the fucking war.
Right. Yeah, it just, I don't know. It seemed kind of weird, but yeah, you're right. I don't know. Good scene, and we're going to get another dream sequence, so I guess I'm just going to move on, and we can kind of wrap up all the dream stuff in a little bit. After that, we have Rhaenys. She meets Alan, and I like this scene. I take back everything that I said last podcast about the shipyard. I'm happy we have the shipyard because we had this cool scene. Rhaenys meets Alan. She's like, she can see the resemblance that he has to Corlys, and she says that his mom must have been beautiful. And then Corlys enters the shot, shuts this shit down. He's like, don't you have more work to do? Then get your ass going. And, she talks to him. She's like, oh, you didn't tell me it was this one in particular that saved your life. And then she goes on about Bela returning, Black Council's being awful without Rhaenyra, and Corlys is just like, where the fuck's Rhaenyra? Not a huge scene, but a really, I mean, especially now that we know the outcome of this episode, really a good scene where Rhaenys basically acknowledges knowing that Alan is Corlys's bastard. So basically what I got from this, and correct me if I'm wrong, she knew that Corlys had cheated on her and had bastards, but she never met the bastards? Is that what you got from it?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I got from it. I mean, which makes sense because, like, if you were the jilted wife, even if there's, love still there, would you want to, like, have your nose rubbed in it like, I guess, Robert did to Cersei?
Well, I mean, look at Ned and Catelyn and how she treated Jon Snow.
Exactly. So,
I will always say I really like Rhaenys and Corlys's chemistry on screen. I think they, as a pairing in House of the Dragon, I think they have some of the best chemistry out of any duo. Let's see. Next up, we have Alicent in her room. She gets startled. She drops a dragon statue. My autocorrect changed Orwell to Orwell. He brings her what they call moon tea, which was basically the, Plan B, the abortion drink, if you will. She clearly fears that she has some Krispy Kreme left in her. Orwell, he doesn't really ask much. He's kind of none of his damn business, I guess. And she asks him if he believes that Viserys wanted Aegon to succeed him, and Orwell quickly noped the fuck out of that scene. He's like, "No, never said anything to me." And clearly, Alicent is she has a guilty conscience, or at least maybe not a guilty conscience, but at the very least is thinking about what Rhaenyra said. Do you think it's a guilty conscience?
Oh yeah, for sure it's a guilty conscience. But like we said last week, she's at this point she's riding the tiger. There's no way that she can get off this bus. Yeah, shit has gone too far from the first point.
Right.
So
and it's funny, she doesn't want to have Cole's kid because of all the shit that she said against Rhaenyra and Harwin. Now she's doing kind of the same thing, but just not having the kid. At least not yet. All right. Next up, we have Black Council meeting, and this goes exactly as anticipated. Baela's still going on about what she saw, which I found that kind of weird because we already had Rhaenys say that Baela was back talking about it, but they're still talking about it. Alfred, being the smart one at the fucking table, is like, yeah, you should have burned them when you had the opportunity, which seems to be a fucking thing. I'll go on about that later, but, he was right. Massey, he's wondering what the fuck Dame is doing. Good line here, and if I know the Riverlands, he has more disentangling ahead of him than the end of a Lysini orgy. And my first question to you is, what is or who are the Lysini? Do you know? Okay.
No.
I never heard that term before, but that's the first of two terms I've never heard before in this episode. Basically, no ravens have returned from Harrenhal, so Dame's not, responding. They refer to the Crown Lands a lot in this this whole episode, actually, and I'm curious. I even looked it up online. I found mentions, but I didn't really understand what exactly are the Crown Lands. Is it territory specifically? Do you know?
Looks like one of the regions of the Seven Kingdoms, ruled by the Iron Throne. So it's the stuff directly around King's Landing.
That makes sense. Because they bring up Riverlands and other things. I'm like, all right, I don't know if the whole kingdom's meant to be the Crown Lands, but that answer makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, we had, the Stormlands where the Baratheons were from. The North was the North. Dorne. The I forgot if it was the Tablelands for the Flowerlands for Highgarden. I think it was It's either way, one of the, so yeah, the Crown lands were the area directly around King's Landing.
You just said Stormlands, and I this is slightly off topic, but this was another question I had for you. Why was Daenerys? Why was she Daenerys Stormborn and not Daenerys Targaryen?
Well, I mean, she was Daenerys Targaryen.
Okay, so it was just a nickname. Okay.
Yeah, she was born during...
Oh, okay.
Like, literally during a storm.
Gotcha.
Like
that
a great
makes
storm.
sense to me. Right. Anyway, so anyways, Alfred says that, maybe they could get some shit done if they had a host and a leader at the table would be nice. The council's kind of rudderless. Rhaenyra says that, she's doing the best that she can, but Alfred shoots back, should her voice be any louder than anybody else at the table, which I liked this kind of back and forth. He says that she isn't the hand, the consort's gone, and, they need to get their shit together. And then Corlys, he's only in 2 scenes, but both times he comes in, he just immediately shuts shit down, and I'm now officially referring to him as the Black Negan of the show, because when he's on screen, shit happens. I love Corlys. Anyway, he says while the enemy is making moves, maybe it's in their best interest to, get some work done instead of bitching, moaning, and trying to, be the most powerful person at the table. I liked everything about this scene, because even the guys that you don't necessarily like Alfred definitely comes off abrasive, but he made good points in this particular episode, in this scene especially. So I like the scene. I don't know. Is Corlys just has more power because it's in Driftmark, or is it that his voice carries more, do you think?
I mean, he was the only one in that room who officially had a spot in any of the governments. He was was he master of coin or master of shit, whatever master he was for
Viserys, right?
Yeah. Viserys, yeah. He's also got the strongest fiefdom, whatever you want to call it. I mean, obviously, as we can see, one of the people on their console has like a super small castle, as we'll get to in a little bit. And only one of them looks to be a warrior, and whether or not Corlys is a great warrior, since his bastard children are fishing him out of the sea after he gets got. He still is a big fucking imposing dude. So
there's nobody at the table I'd want to fuck with less than Corlys, Actually, nobody at the table is really that imposing. I would actually probably say after Corlys, I'd probably not want to fuck with Rhaenys. Secondly, she just seems like a tough, smart old broad. I don't know.
Yes, hell yeah, she's fucking.
Yeah. She
does the work, man.
She's an OG, so to speak. All right, next scene. Crispix, he's telling House Darklyn to either take up Aegon's banner or die. Lord Darklyn ain't having that shit. He spits at Cole, gets his head lopped off. Crisp's Squire gives him a message from a raven, and we don't know what it says, so the intrigue. And Cole says that they're going to follow the coastlines east, and Gawain has this awesome line. He goes, I realize you were neither born nor bred anywhere near the Crown Lands, my good Lord Hand, but Harrenhal is to the west. And Cole just responds, indeed it is. So, good scene in the fact that we clearly... Now we have suspicions on something, the direction that this is going. Clearly they're not interested in Harrenhal, at least from Cole's perspective. I don't know. Did Gawain grow on you a little bit this episode?
I mean, I didn't dislike him in the first episode like you did.
Yeah.
So, well, that first episode that showed up in. I saw an interesting take, too, on somebody pointing out that, like, Crispin is, he's the only other person we see besides Ned who actually takes it upon himself to execute somebody that he's judging. I would say it does seem through this episode that his responsibilities seem like they're beginning to wear on Kristen.
Rob also did. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
Well, which makes sense. But yeah.
I
Ned's son.
did not even consider that, but that is interesting. I've read that by the end of the season, Crispin's probably, he may still be hateable, but he's going to be a lot more relatable. So I'm intrigued. Like, I don't know anything about his story. That none of the spoilers involved him, so I don't know anything. But I'm super intrigued to see, how this goes for him, or if it's just all people speculating. I don't really know. All right. So next we have Aegon. We're having the small council. Aegon's pissed off at Larys because Daemon's taken over Harrenhal, which is Larys's domain. Larys responds with, "That castle is more crippled than I am." Great line. Aemond just sitting back smirking during this whole outburst. Larys says that Harrenhal's penniless, and basically it's going to sap Daemon of all of his energy, trying to figure out what to do with Harrenhal and be a huge distraction. Aegon says, he needs to be informed of shit so he can make good decisions. And Aemon says that Harrenhal must wait. Crispin's marching on Rook's Rest, which is Lord Staunchton's castle. It's a seemingly small, worthless place, but it keeps Dragonstone off the mainland, basically. Aemon says the war will not be won with dragons alone, but with dragons fighting behind armies of men. Aegon insistently wants Harrenhal, and Aemon's like, nah, not happening. Cole is already doing his own thing. Aemon reveals that Cole sent him a message, which, makes Aegon just a little jelly. Then Aemon just gets sick of Aegon's shit, starts speaking to him in High Valyrian, basically dressing him down for, wasting time with his buddies, choosing his own sobriquet, or sobriquet, which I learned is basically the nickname. So, when they were coming up with, Aegon the Magnanimous or Dragoncock, that's what a sobriquet is. He made fun of who, Aegon made for his Kingsguard, which was basically just his buddies. Basically, it's like a fucking episode of Entourage in its own stupid way. And Aegon has no real response. And Aemon just kind of takes over plotting things, and Aegon sits down sheepishly, he really feels kind of powerless in some ways. So we're basically getting the dynamic of we're furthering the dynamic between Aemon and Aegon, pretty much in this scene, more or less, right? Aemon really just comes off as the guy that should be the king, but Aegon was the older brother, so he got it by birthright, basically. It's just, in some ways, I almost feel bad, and I'll say this more later, but I do feel bad for Aegon in the way that if we think about he didn't really want to be king to begin with, and it just, I imagine it had everything that we've seen, it's been kind of frustrating for him. Even if he tries to be yeah, here, get some more sheep, get some more money for your blacksmith. And then Otto's well, I feel like Aegon's been kind of undermined most of his time. Would that be fair?
maybe. Yeah, like, I mean, that's going from the whole predisposition that, any of this shit should have happened in the first place.
Of course. So, next we have Allison. She's warming a stone for her upset belly. Laris visits. She says that she had way too much lamprey pie, because that's her indulgence. And basically they go back and forth about indulgences. He knows what's up. And he talks to her about Crispin, and she is sweating. I didn't notice that the first time. The second time through, all of a sudden I realized when she's like wiping her forehead, she is sweating. And he said that she hasn't been seeming like herself lately. One thing it was good was that she put things into perspective, saying that Viserys has only been dead, for a few weeks. For us as a viewing audience, it's been, almost 2 years, but in Showtime, it has been, a few weeks. So I found that good that they kind of gave us a little perspective. She's been reading a lot of history books lately. And Laris brings up Viserys changing his mind about Aegon being, the heir. And he asks her if she doubts Viserys' intentions, and she says that both Rhaenyra's and Aegon supporters will believe what they want, basically making Viserys' intentions kind of moot. And I don't know, I thought that was actually a really good response to it. That she's not wrong. At this point, I feel like everybody kind of has their mind made up, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's... Like, let me posit this question to you. If Rhaenyra and Alicent came out together from the set last week and was like, oh, we made a mistake. Viserys still wanted Rhaenyra to be the queen. Do you think it would have stopped fucking any of the men in Westeros from fucking doing what they want to do?
No, of course. Not only that, but I almost feel like the common folk would just be like, oh, what the fuck? I feel like nobody would be happy from that outcome. You know what I mean? Like, there's just nothing positive was ever going to come from that meeting, and it is funny. Like, I almost want like a Marvel What If animated version of what would happen had they just came out and be like, our bad, Rhaenyra's queen. I think that'd be hilarious to just do a one-off What If type thing. Yeah. There's just not much is ever going to come of that. It is what it is. All right. Now we get to, I don't know. I don't want to say it's my favorite scene. It was the most intriguing scene to me, though. We're back to Harrenhal. This is where Daemon wakes up, sees somebody walking past his door. He hears a sword, so naturally he gets up with his sword, and he's chasing after what looks to be Aemon from behind, but then the guy turns around, and we see that's Daemon, but with an eye patch. And, just in case nobody was aware, Aemon and Daemon look very similar to each other, folks. Just let you know. And, then we meet Alice Rivers, who I've heard is going to be a relatively decent role for this. She's like a presumed witch, and I mean Black Phillip all but basically cemented that in my mind immediately. She says that she's kind of like a maester, but I don't know. I'm guessing she's more closer to like a Melisandre. She talks to him about the curse of Harrenhal, how his bed was made from a heart tree. She jokes that she was cursed and actually a barn owl, which made me chuckle. I don't know why. She assumes that he hasn't been sending messages back via Raven because he's quarreling with Rhaenyra. Then he talks about his claim being contested and all the shit with Rhaenyra. Then she gives him a drink. And this was the most perplexing part, though. he doesn't really question it. He's just like, oh, this lady that I don't know who's probably a witch just gave me a drink. I'm going to drink it.
I mean, not to mention, it looks like fucking blood.
Like, I don't get it, man. Like, well, Damon, of all people, which, I don't want to say he's the smartest dude, but he is a pretty calculated guy. But suddenly he's just like, sure, why not? So he wakes up and he's sitting at the Harrenhal table, and a bunch of people are there talking to him, and he's like out of it, super confused, like how he got there, like blacked out, woke up there. Next to him is Willem Blackwood, who we met in season 1. He was the young boy teenager that was getting made fun of when the guys were vying for Rhaenyra's hand in marriage, and he fucking killed one of the Brackens, which was awesome. So we have grown-up Willem, and then Willem brings up Laenor, and then the very next thing we see is Damon sees Lena as the serving girl, but then kind of comes to and realizes that's just like a middle-aged white lady, and that's the scene. But God, this scene sets up so much cool shit for me. I'm super excited about a witch. Do you know anything more about
nothing.
Alice?
She's completely new to me. Blank slate.
Nothing. So I don't know. Like I said, I get a feeling she's going to be closer to Melisandre than anything, but she's probably going to be unlike anything else that we've seen, I'm guessing. Like, maybe a cross between Melisandre and, like, the warlock from wherever fucking Daenerys was, and the dragons got captured.
Mir, maybe? Remember. Oh, by the way, the Lyseni orgy is one of those cities over in the Pentos, Mir. Yeah, all of those areas. It's a little island off the side. I looked that up over.
Awesome. I don't know. Like, she's gonna be fun. I really think that she's gonna be fun. I hope she has a good run in her. She seems like she's gonna cause some chaos for us. And she was the same one that told Damon he was going to die at Harrenhal last week, right?
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have this really small scene at the small council with, Lannister, Orwyle, what's-his-face, and Larys, and Aegon. They're all just talking about coins and resources, and Aegon's just sitting there getting more and more pissed off, and then he hears them calling Crispin the Kingmaker, and Aegon tells them that they all bore him, and he gets up and gets the fuck out, which, whatever. It was a very small scene, probably didn't need to happen, but it's clearly building up to what he's about to do. Next, we have Alicent in the King's quarters, I guess, looking for Viserys' old books with all the history and stuff. Aegon had them removed, but he didn't.
That was probably my favorite Aegon line that we've gotten. I had them removed. I didn't burn them, mother.
Yes, that was good. He complains to her about how the council doesn't care what he thinks, so she's like, all right, well, what are your thoughts? And basically he talks a little bit, and she's like, just because you wear the crown, it doesn't imbue you with any type of wisdom. She's like, the guys at the table, by and large, they earned their spot there, through whatever, hard work, wisdom, whatever. And she says that she'd hoped that Aegon, when he became king, would have just sat down, shut the fuck up, and, like, learn from these men, and become wise like Viserys, but, clearly that hasn't been his agenda. So then he gets pissy, he's like, watch what you say, and she's like, what the fuck are you gonna do, right? And she brings up that between her and Otto, they did so much scheming, planning, whatever. They were smart, and then, Aegon never really went to them for advice. So he basically asks her, like, what would you have me do? And she says, just do nothing. And once again, poor Aegon. He's just like, he wants to do something. He wants to be involved, but nobody wants. He's like the lonely kid on the playground at this point. I feel like he probably has money, so he has a couple of friends that want to hang out with him because he has money. But like, otherwise, nobody wants to hang out.
I really feel like Alicent showed in this episode that she does not understand any of her children.
That makes sense.
I mean, maybe it was because she was. Well, she obviously wasn't an only child because she has a brother that showed up out of nowhere in season 2. But she's definitely not, as in touch with her children as at least Otto was with her.
Oh yeah, clearly. I don't even know who Alicent's closest with of her children.
I'm going to say it's probably Darren because we haven't seen her traumatize him yet.
Like, we never really see her dealing with Aemond, ever. We've had her a couple times with Helena and sometimes with Aegon, and yeah, she is just beyond out of touch with them.
I mean, though, to be fair, like, I can only imagine how many times she found Aegon whacking off out of windows when he was growing up and, yeah.
When he was making it rain.
We only had to see it once. She had to probably deal with it, every day for weeks, if not months.
Plus, I mean, how many times she had to go and, be like, oh, you impregnated another one of the servant girls. Okay. Like, she had a tiring schedule just dealing with him being a dick. And probably, if you think about it, that probably definitely added to the resentment Aemond has for him, because I feel that whatever attention she did give to her children, 80% of that went to Aegon misbehaving.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, next scene, I'm excited because I noticed something. I had it confirmed. We see some trees falling. We're in the woods near Rook's castle, and as soon as I see this, I'm like, this is the same place they fucking filmed Gladiator. And I watched the after show, and they did confirm that. So I don't know. Sometimes I can just pick out something really random like that, and that was, I'm pretty sure it was from the opening of Gladiator, that whole scene. And Crispy, he wants to go in charging during the day, and Gwaine is like, dude, I'm being rational here. I want to live. Like, we're really close to a dragon. Remember last time we were close to a dragon? Like, that could have ended really poorly, and Cole's just like, fuck it. We're doing it. I feel like Gwaine never was going to have any say, but it seems like every time he has, some kind of dissenting opinion, Cole immediately just gives zero fucks and doesn't take anything that Gwaine says seriously. Is that pretty much agreed?
Yeah.
I mean, as we know, Crispin has a plan anyway, but yeah, he just immediately disregards him. Okay, so next we have Rhaenyra returning to the Black Council, and most important thing I got out of this was that the guy that escorted her last episode that we didn't know is actually Lord Darkland's son, Stefan. So now I have a name for him. Everybody's just giving Rhaenyra shit, where have you been? And she's like, oh, I went to King's Landing and talked to Alicent. And everybody's just like, the fuck? You could have died, and then this whole thing would have been completely pointless. And she's like, alright, I'm all in. This is going to be 50 Cent territory. Get the throne or die trying level of shit. I really kind of wanted to hear 50 Cent during the scene, but it didn't happen. Missaria, she only has this one little bit. She's just kind of watching on from the balcony, observing. I have no idea why they even showed it other than to appease me, I guess. Jace, he insists that they need to send a dragon. Rhaenyra's like, oh, you know what? That's a great idea. I'm going to go out on a war on my dragon. Like, she pulls, like, the parallels between her and Aegon here are remarkable. Jace is like, no, you're stupid. I'll go. And Rhaenys then steps up, saying that Meleys is the biggest and best and most experienced dragon at their disposal, so she'll go. And that was the moment where I didn't take any notes during my first viewing other than R.I.P. Rhaenyra. That was my only note that I took the whole episode. There was no other, like, I don't know. Pretty much any fan watching this probably assumed Rhaenys was going to die here, right?
No, I don't think so.
No?
No.
Huh. Okay. I don't know. To me, it just seemed like mid-season episode, somebody's got to die. Seemed like the practical thing to me. Next, we have Aegon. He's alone, getting drunk. He's a sad panda. He shatters his pitcher or flagon. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Is it flagon or flagon?
Flagon.
Okay. He decides he's going to take action, much like his sister was going to do. So, very next scene, we get Jace talking to Rhaenyra that, you know, he wanted to fight for her claim, and now it's time for her to pass along the what was it, Aegon the Conqueror's dream, the Song of Ice and Fire, blah blah blah. And this is basically serves as a montage scene because we have we see Rhaenys getting geared up, talking to Meleys. We have Aegon getting his armor on. Him and Sunfire have like this cute little quick scene with each other. Like Sunfire really likes Aegon. And we see Cole's crew approach Rook's Rest defense. And Rook's Rest defense, the archers are getting prepared. And we can see that Cole has 4 battering rams. And I don't know, like, it was good. I don't have any complaints. It makes sense that Rhaenyra would eventually pass on the story to Jace. I don't know, like, though the timing of it seems kind of weird because I can't imagine that at this moment Rhaenyra's like, oh, I'm going to die within the next few days. Did the timing make sense for her to tell him the story now? Do you think?
I felt like they were trying to make this seem like it was an epic fucking scene, and it just didn't do anything for me.
All right.
Yeah, like I don't know, like the way they were trying to montage it, and I'm like, it literally would have, you know, fucking minutes to fucking tell, and you know, like, I don't know why they're trying to hide, you know, the whole idea in the first place. You know, like, maybe are they wondering that, you know, people are going to think Aegon the Conqueror, who is at this point, you know, over 100 years dead, is some kind of crazy nut job because he had a dream about saving the world from some kind of evil coming from the north.
I mean, I have dreams like that pretty much monthly.
Yeah, I mean, and you... The shitty thing for you is you live further north than I do. So.
Man, all I can tell you is in a few months, winter is coming, hopefully, because I'm sick of this heat. But, yeah, they tried hard to make this into something, but despite all the good things that this episode had, this was clearly the weakest part for me, without a doubt. All right, so basically, this whole... I broke this down into 2 scenes, but it's all one giant scene, really. Alright, so this is the big fight. We have archers. The archers are kicking Cole's army's ass for a bit. They were doing really good, but they are just outnumbered. I don't even know, like 5-1, maybe more. Also, actually, I was going to ask, do you know which lord at the table was like the Lord of Rook's Rest? Or whatever?
In which scene?
Alright, so my understanding is that one of the guys at the Black Council table, it was like their as a representative for Rook's Rest.
No, the Lord from Rook's Rest wasn't there because the army was coming towards his shit. He's the dude who's on the wall during the scene with the archers, and finally, when Vagar shows up in a minute, the other dude's like, "Hey, sir, we should go inside." That's the Lord of Rook's Rest.
Okay, yeah, I got that. I thought I read something that's one like there was a representative from Rook's Rest at the table, but I was like, the more I read about it, I couldn't find it. So I think whoever wrote that just made it confusing for me, or maybe I misread it. Entirely possible. Anyway, let's see. They see Cole's crew sees Melise incoming. Gawain he doesn't want none of that smoke. Cole is like, we gotta divide the dragon's attention, and also we gotta do the signal. Melise rains down some fire. We have multiple bugle players and whatnot for the signal. And we see that Aemond is hiding in the woods with Vagar. And just as he's about ready to, start flying, he sees Sunfire with Aegon flying over him. So he tells Vagar to chill the fuck out. He is not happy because Aegon's just fucking up his plan. So Cole asks for more signal arrows because he still doesn't see Vagar. He then gives the fucking Braveheart speech. Hey, the king's joining us in war. Let's go fuck these little people up because, this was the easiest fight in the world. Anyways, we get we have Rhaenys and Aegon. They're fighting in the air. The dragons are kind of fighting like hawks, I guess is the best description. That was the description they gave in the after show. That's when, after that, the Lord that we were just talking about, he sees Vagar rise up. Shit's about to get real. Cole is happy. Rhaenys, she sees Vagar approaching. Aegon, he's thanking the gods that his brother showed up now. And immediately Aemon's just like, Dracarys, and burns the shit out of Rhaenys and Aegon. That ended so poorly for Aegon. So Sunfire goes crashing down, and what I learned from this episode is when dragons fall to the ground, there's big explosions, which I guess makes sense. I never really thought about the whole physics of it. Anyway, Cole, he goes. He wants to go to the woods to try to find Aegon, but so much shit's happening. Rhaenys has the opportunity to just leave. She turns her head, and then she has this moment, which pretty much is this. I don't know. I think she did it because it was kind of like when Jaime had that opportunity to take down Daenerys. He took his shot, and he failed, in Season 7. And this feels like Rhaenys kind of taking her shot, being like, if possibly we can take down Vagar, we have a chance. And probably also a sense of missed opportunity when she could have just killed everybody at the king's coronation. But as we all know, this doesn't go well because Vagar is 50 to 100 times or 100% bigger than Melise. I don't know if he's fully double the size, but he is significantly bigger. And basically, it's a fun dragon scene. The audio goes quiet, so we have a more serious tone and sound, so we know shit's about to happen. And Rhaenys, basically, she knows what's going to happen. She's strapped in and all this stuff. And I'm not even kidding. Fucking when Vagar shows up, it scared me. There was a jump scare for me. And I felt like such a damn fool. And basically, Vagar just bites the neck of Melise, biting the head off, and Melise's body and Rhaenys, they go tumbling down, and big boom, as expected. Aemond is pleased, and let's see. We see Cole. He gets up, sees all the carnage, and I just noticed like how brilliantly this was filmed. This is one of the few times where I can sit there and be like, "This was filmed great." Cole gets up. He touches a soldier on the shoulder, and he crumbles Stash, which was a cool effect. Then he makes his way to where Aegon crashed, and he sees Aemond with a sword in his hand, and he calls him out, and Aemond stops because Aemond looked like he was about ready to potentially kill his brother, and he is already the Kinslayer. And Aemond does pick up Aegon's dagger, and we see half of Aegon's body, and I know that's important because it was important last week when we saw half of Aegon's body shadowed in the mirror, so back-to-back episodes of that. And yeah, Aemond walks off, Cole drops to his knees, and for whatever reason, the only question I have written here is how will this affect Cole and Alicent? I don't know. I just talked for way too long. Give me your thoughts on everything.
I mean, I don't know how much there's to add. It's pretty straightforward. The one thing I will say, though, is I don't think when Aemond comes in, he's really doing too much damage to is it Meleys?
Yeah.
And Meleys and Rhaenys. He's almost entirely just fucking up Aegon and Sunfire.
Yes.
And what I'm curious of is how much of that was intentional.
They're building this
obviously
up to
some
be
of it
intentional,
was, yeah.
I think.
One thing that I'd like to point out, though, is I think we get more High Valyrian in this one episode than we did in almost the entirety of Game of Thrones.
Yes, I would agree. Basically learned a second language this episode.
Yeah, like I knew it was coming. Rhaenys' death was one of the couple that I knew exactly how it was going to play out before we started watching the show. But I felt like it's just stupid decisions, like she came in, she did her job. Like, if Vhagar stayed around, they definitely would have been able to take the castle, but, she forced Vhagar away, and, like, if she just ran back to Dragonstone and be like, hey, Vhagar is burning Rook's Rest, we can go fucking sack King's Landing right now. Things would have gone so much differently. But, yeah, I wasn't quite jump scared, because I was like, okay, he's either above her or below her, because she's not fucking looking in those two directions. And then, yeah, but that biting the head off was a pretty awesome scene. I mean, the other thing that I heard a reviewer mention, and I was like, yeah, that's a good point, was they were making a big deal about how the dragons were supposed to be smarter in this season, have more personality. I mean, I don't think we really got a ton of dragons in season 1 in the first place. But, like, that kind of became apparent in the scene where Meleys is dying, and you see the look on its face as it, as Vhagar's just biting its fucking head off, so.
Much like how we saw Sunfire kind of, like, playful with Aemond a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Aegon.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I did really like that portion, too, when Kristen gets up and goes to touch a soldier, and it fucking just, falls away into ashes inside of his armor. I thought that was a really well-filmed scene. I don't know, though. I mean, people are going on and on about how it's such a good scene, and yeah, it was, the dragon portion was, but, like, I think the numbers are supposed to be larger than, like, say, Battle of the Bastards, but the portion of the battle up until that point felt so much smaller. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. This is, and this was really going to be a question, but I'm glad you brought it up. Basically, the internet and fans have hyped this up so much, but I feel it's a matter of hyping it up because it's been X amount of years since we had something on this scale, so it seems bigger and more important than, I I would say on an epic level, this episode wouldn't crack the top 5 Game of Thrones epic episodes. But just my opinion. But I really as much as I enjoyed this episode, I really had a good time, and there was a lot of cool shit. I don't know, like, Battle of the Bastards was big, Blackwater was big, the battle on the fucking wall against the wildlings was awesome. There's so many cool things, and I don't know, when did Game of Thrones end? 2019, was it?
Was it? Yeah, somewhere around there, 2018, 2019, because we started Season 7 in 2017, so.
Yeah, I think it's just been a matter that, what have we had that's been on this scale of, quote-unquote epicness since then from TV?
I mean, to be fair, too, to this series, and I mean fair not in necessarily a positive way, we keep getting the after effects of fucking everything. Like, we see the bodies of the Brackens and the Blackwoods last episode, but we don't see any of the fight. We don't see Kristen taking the castle at the beginning. We just see the execution. Although I really did like that scene too. Like, after he cuts the dude's head off, he's walking away, all of a sudden you see all the soldiers fucking kneeling.
Yes. That was good, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm enjoying the political maneuvering a lot. I think the characters so far are pretty well written. I haven't seen people doing too much nonsensical stuff for just story reasons. But yeah, it really feels like that's a portion that they've scaled back the budget in the action for this. I mean, we haven't even really had too many sword fights, to be honest, in one-on-one things, not even large battles.
Yeah, we had Eric on Eric. We had season 1, who was it, Cole versus Eric in a sword fight, kind of, when they were trying to find Aegon. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, they skimped so much. We did talk about this just last week. They really do skimp on showing us the actual action, just give us the aftermath. And I don't know if you're gonna say epic. Well, Game of Thrones fucking devoted a whole hour to like one battle in some episodes. That, to me, is more epic than, giving us just 20 minutes and condensing it significantly. So, I don't know.
Would you put this up over the scene in, what is it, Season 8, Episode 4, when the Dothraki and Daenerys attack Jaime and Bronn on the way back from Highgarden?
No.
Like that, there's no other dragon, but the amount of sheer fucking carnage that, Drogon laid waste to was fucking pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree. This series is good. It's very, very good. I don't know, I love this series. It's just, unfortunately, you can't help but to compare it to Game of Thrones, and when compared to Game of Thrones just kind of did everything bigger, better, bigger, they did. It doesn't diminish the show in any way, but it does make me long for, I would have been cool had we had, like, the first 40 minutes, just tack on some stuff, have its own episode, and then gave us a full episode of the battle at Rook's Rest. I would have much preferred that. Would have been cool. But
I mean, I feel like this show so far, and I mean, who the hell knows how many seasons are going to be, has been steady. Like, I would put it up over a good 50%, 60% of Game of Thrones. But the problem is, like, Game of Thrones had highs that were way higher than this, but it also had lows that were way lower than this. I mean, it was pretty steady for the first couple seasons, but I mean, it was like going up and down a hill, like, and you could almost see that the way the seasons were. This is kind of like just being on a fucking plateau and just fucking walking in a straight line.
Right? Yeah. No, this is the epitome of like a perfect B+ player, and probably more of an A- player for me. Like, it does everything mostly very, very, very good. And it's just, and it is better than a huge percentage of anything on TV. It really is. It's just, yeah, I think this episode got a little more hype than maybe it deserved, but simultaneously, I was also equally hyped because what else has there been? Like, I don't watch The Boys. I think that's the only show out currently that could possibly give me like a similar type of hype or anticipation, I guess. I don't know. Is there any other show out there currently that kind of scales to this, do you think?
Probably not. I mean, Gen V was really good, but that's a Boys spin-off, kind of like this is. And, considering that one of the main leads died off-season, not sure where they're going to be going with that going forward.
Like died in real life?
Yeah, died in real life. Like literally one of like the 5 main characters. Yeah, so I like Walking Dead back in the day, I guess a lot of it would be HBO shows to compare, like Sopranos, that kind of had the same, zeitgeist, Breaking Bad.
Boardwalk Empire, maybe.
Yeah, but something on like the epic scale of this, maybe Battlestar Galactica when that was out. Although, a lot of that too was the reason why I would say it was not as big was because just the internet wasn't as prevalent. Like, when you had people talking about how it's the best show on television, but, the viewership is small because it's the network it's airing on, and, we didn't have the prevalence of, like, Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, Metacritic kind of stuff, YouTube review channels, same kind of thing. So, yeah, we typically don't get as much genre fare on television as it is because it's expensive. You have stuff like Wheel of Time and Rings of Power on Amazon that spent more money, but didn't quite hire the same writing room. So
Right.
That's a thing. So no, I think this is basically, like you said, The Boys in this are basically premier genre, and when I say genre, I'm talking about not your typical crime drama,
Right.
semi-western thing going on with like Yellowstone and that kind of shit right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the other side of the coin is, when you had Game of Thrones initially coming out, it was coming out, within a decade of, Lord of the Rings and then the Hobbit movies coming out, so it had, stuff to piggyback off of. Whereas, the last really big fantasy thing we got was Game of Thrones, and you had stuff like The Witcher try to compete and it didn't work. So, or at least didn't work to the same level. So yeah, I think that's probably why you have people saying epic, and that, people love dragons. As soon as you throw a dragon into an episode, like, the rating shoots up on this show anyways. So.
Yeah. And plus, this has to be huge because, unlike, say, The Lord of the Rings on Amazon or Witcher on Netflix, if this show isn't successful, HBO Max takes a huge hit, a much bigger hit, if this doesn't succeed than if Witcher didn't succeed or Lord of the Rings didn't succeed, in my opinion.
Yeah, Netflix is the money. They're the only people who are making a profit in the streaming business, like, nonstop. Max finally did, but, a lot of that is due to the amount of cost cutting that they've done by dumping shit and, canceling stuff before it's come out. Prime can afford to eat, whatever, because they just make money hand over fist with all of their stuff going on. Amazon just prints money.
It's bigger than just Prime Video.
I don't think there would be a way for people to regulate it without really significantly damaging the global economy at this point.
Agreed.
So yeah, there's a lot more writing on this for them, but they did the fucking smart thing. The number one thing that you need to do to get a good show is to hire good writers. And they did. So, you can't complain about it.
I mean, realistically, the acting, most shows I nitpick the hell out of, as you know. I really don't nitpick much on the acting of this show. I would say it is almost always spot on. And, once again, that goes to the writing as well, but, they cast really good people for the roles.
I mean, this one had a few larger people than Game of Thrones did, because, I mean, season 1, you had what? Mark Addy, Sean Bean, and Lena Headey, basically, as the only people who had relatively decent careers going before the start of the
Yeah,
the
I
show.
didn't even know Lena at the time, so I only knew, the other two guys.
But this has cast a couple more successful people in roles to start. But I mean, for a lot of the other thing is they take a bunch of unknowns. They just good writers, good casting, and succeed.
Yeah, actually, the first scene that they filmed for this whole season was with Damon and young Rhaenyra, because Millie was about to start a play, but they contacted her about doing this, so that was the very first stuff that they filmed this season. I thought that was neat. But it's like weird that she went from like doing this and back to doing theater stuff. And I don't want to say it's a step down, but seriously, like I don't know, if I was starting a show that you could put her in, I would absolutely try getting her. She was a great actress to me.
She's DC's new Supergirl, so
That's unfortunate. I have no faith in DC,
okay.
dude. I just don't. I'm hoping it gets better.
I mean, I like James Gunn, so we'll see.
I love James Gunn, and that's really about where it is. I don't. Are we ever getting another season of Peacemaker? We are. Good.
Yes, from what I understand, like the first thing coming out for the new DCU, because I don't DCE, whatever the new
Detective
DC
Comics
is the Creatures Commandos animated show, which I think is supposed to come out this summer, and then we got the Superman coming out and a couple fucking other things, but I think Peacemaker season 2 is scheduled for like 2026, maybe 2025, somewhere in that range. I mean, I would imagine that John Cena, in essence, his retirement from wrestling is going to only help in that regard.
Well, his in-ring performance has taken a dive, obviously, because he's not doing it as much anymore. So now is a great time for him to do that and branch off, because I don't know, aside from Batista, I think Cena's arguably the second best wrestler turned actor. I liked The Rock's early stuff, but he really doesn't branch out much.
You could see, like, I love The Rundown. I fucking love that movie. Like, little lightning, little thunder lightning. And then I would say, you could see that it felt like he got an acting coach between that and like Walking Tall. But yeah, as he's gone on since then, he's just The Rock. It's like Will Smith. He, for the most part, he plays himself in everything. Will has obviously branched out and done some shit, over the course of his career, but very often he falls back on playing himself. The Rock is literally he plays himself all the fucking time now. Batista has honestly surprised me with the amount of depth that I've seen him do in some of the fucking roles he's done. And I like Cena. I like Cena a lot. So, I am looking forward to Peacekeeper, Maker, whatever, season 2. To backtrack, to get back on point with this, did we go all the way to the end of the episode, or did we? Yeah. Okay. I mean, is there anything else you want to go over before we start, like, questions and stuff?
I mean, you did. We were kind of talking about whether it was intentional on Amon's part, and One thing I read that I didn't know was that in the book, one of the changes that they did from the book is that in the book, Aemond and Aegon are both waiting in the woods, and it's pre-set up, and they added this little whatever to this story to make it probably more dramatic. Obviously, I think if nothing else, Aegon showing up unexpectedly makes this more dramatic between the brothers, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing to remember for the book is unlike like A Song of Ice and Fire, where it's a fictional story for us, but it's written as the events are happening. A Dance of Dragons, or not A Dance of Dragons, the Fire and Blood is written as a historical transcript. So, history written by somebody who wasn't there, or even by somebody who was there, but you're not giving like the thoughts and the, when somebody's relaying a speech, it's like what it would be if somebody was relaying, the Gettysburg Address, not from Lincoln's standpoint, but from being somebody who had that spoken to them. So, for example, I know at the end of this section of the book, like when they talk about some of the fates of people, it's like this could have happened or this could have happened, but we don't know for certain because, everybody who was present died. So, make up your own story kind of deal.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know how the book read, so it sounds like more of a historical recounting of what happened as opposed to how the main story is from individuals' perspectives and their stories then, right?
Exactly. Imagine of like Pliny's histories or Herodotus, writing about, Greek history back in, the BCs, for some of the stuff that he was present for, he got it spot on, but then he's also talking about how like there were giant ants down in Africa and, sirens existed and all of that kind of shit because he was just reporting what he was being told instead of, actually being there for all of it. So.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited because I have probably like the rest of the season kind of fleshed out in my mind and a general idea between spoilers and what I feel safe in predicting, but I don't really want to say anything in case it lies into fucking spoiler territory. But I am excited about what's to come. I would say more so with Aemond and Daemon. They're the two that have my attention, and then off to the side is Alice and Mysaria. I would say those are probably the four characters that have my attention, and I assume maybe by the end of the season, Hugh and Ulf will potentially have bigger roles. I mean, they got introduced. It seems like they eventually will have bigger roles. And I'm curious to see what they do. And actually, I'm curious about... Do you know what Corlys's fate is? Like, has that been spoiled for you? Because I don't.
I don't know, because like all of the stuff that I read before any of this came out was all about the Targaryens. Gotcha. So, like, it's mentioned that like he was married to Rhaenys, but
yeah,
I knew that she died because, it's talked about in, Aegon and Aemon's shit, but so no. No,
I don't feel this would be spoiler territory. I guess it's more of a simple question, since I know dragon riders are an important thing eventually. Would Adam and Alan qualify as potential dragon riders because of the blood with Corlys?
I know for sure Adam gets a dragon. Okay. I don't know if Alan does.
Oh, okay.
I mean, so I would assume. Yes.
Okay. Cool. All right. Do you have anything else for the episode?
I had one person point out this, and I was like, "Oh, that's a good question," but who knows if we'll get an answer. Like, where the hell is Sir Harold Westerling right now? What the fuck is he up to? Oh
my god, dude! I forgot about him.
Like, considering the casualties in the Kingsguard, if I was like Rhaenyra, I'd be like, "Hey, You want to come? You want to hook a sister up?
No, that's a really good question. I had not thought of him in a long while. As a matter of fact, like, she doesn't have shit for, like, right now, who does she have protecting her? Like, her son?
Jobbers?
Yeah, she has the Brooklyn Brawler, Red Rooster. I don't know.
Yeah, she doesn't have The Rock. She has Rocky Maivia.
She doesn't have Goldberg. She has Gilbert. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
She has Rube Goldberg.
Well, I mean, that could potentially help her. Some kind of device. But my God, that's a good question. And I know we're eventually going to meet this Darren, right?
Yeah, they said he's going to be in season 3.
But they skipped over the other kid that Aegon and Helena had, right? Like, they're just skipping over.
Yeah, like because the one who gets killed is the one who gets killed, but they had a younger son as well, and he was the youngest. So in the book, when they make Helena choose, she chooses the youngest. She's like, well, it'll hopefully be the least traumatic for him because he's basically just a toddler, so he won't know what's going on. So she chooses him, Magar, and then they say, see that? Your mom wants you dead. And then they kill the brother that they killed and, leave the little fucking 2-year-old traumatized, on top of all of the other shit that they put them through.
Well, that's just fantastic.
Yeah, you gotta watch out for those fucking rat catchers, man.
Well, I mean, they mostly got. Yeah, I watched I don't normally watch the previews for the next episode, but I happened to catch this one, and I don't know, nothing really caught my attention. I feel like this next episode's going to be, I don't want to say a letdown, but I mean, obviously it's going to have a little bit of a, I don't really know what else that they can do to keep the excitement necessarily from this peak. It's got to go downhill a little bit, at the very least, and that's okay. Alright. Yeah, I don't know, I read so much stuff, and I was going to make notes, and I was like, most of the stuff we were going to talk about, I think we hit most everything that there was that I had read. Screen Rant has turned into a really good source of some info for me, which has been helpful. Also, the after show, I kind of like, but have you ever watched any of the
I actually watched this episode for the first time.
I watched the past 2 weeks, and the only thing I don't like is, like, everybody just gratuitously slobbing on each other's knob. Like, oh, everybody's so amazing. Everybody did such a great job. And I get, like, you're not going to have somebody being like, this guy over here, he's kind of lazy. I get that everybody's going to be happy and put on the happiest face for everything, but I would actually really like to see, like, where they had problems and had to get creative with solving the problems. Like, the movies that made us stuff on Netflix, I prefer that style to know, like, where the problems were and how they, overcame those problems. Would be a little bit more interesting to me. But, once again, nitpick. Anyway, so, as I told you and Kevin earlier today, like an hour before we were supposed to start the podcast, this week's question, which I pulled out of my ass, was quintessentially shit, I don't even know how I worded it now. Do you know how?
Hold on, I had it pulled up because I was like, oh, you know what? I didn't even think about this. Let me fucking answer Kent's question.
Yep,
scrolling. Oh,
okay. Here we go.
Okay, now I got to scroll back the other way. Okay,
I got it. All right. So we saw the end of Jon Snow and Ygritte in season 4 of Game of Thrones, in I want to say episode 9 or 10. And so my question was this the saddest ending to a romantic couple in Game of Thrones that we actually see, like, in its current time? So basically no flashbacks, no, Jon Snow's parentage, none of that stuff. Like, just stuff that we actually saw from a romantic relationship. Was that the saddest? And if it wasn't, what do you think was the saddest ending to a relationship in Game of Thrones?
I honestly think that it goes to Jaime and Cersei.
Dude, that was going to be my answer.
Well, that's because we think alike. And it's, like, it's hard to feel sad for Jon and Ygritte, because it's like, to go back to the books, I know, but, he is younger than Kit Harington was when they filmed it. She was younger than he was too. So it's kind of like, and he was a virgin. So it's like your first love, your first girlfriend in high school. And
it's a fling.
It ends
crush,
badly.
right?
You can love that person. You can love that person with your whole heart. But I find it very hard to, lend credence to all these people who like fall in love at like 12 or 13 and stay with the same person and expect that to be the love of their life. I didn't have a super ton of relationships, but I had enough to know what made me value my wife when I met her, and it would have been way different, if she had been the person that I was dating back, when I was 16 in 1995, than it would have been when I met her, 10 years later, 11 years later.
Yeah, after you got to like sample what relationships were and saw what worked and didn't work, you finally... Yeah,
I've heard people say it's hard to, appreciate a sunny day without having a rainy day, and that's absolutely true in relationships. If you've never had heartbreak, it's hard to put love into comparison. And I don't think like Jaime and Cersei are like a couple that we should be aspiring to, but if you think about it, like their love for each other burned the whole fucking Seven Kingdoms down. Multiple times over, and they go out so ignominiously at the end, just buried under a fucking pile of rock, that it's just kind of sad and melancholy,
I mean, the fact that he walked away from Brienne, which really upset a lot of fans, to go back to his one true love, that also speaks volumes.
I mean, it wasn't a healthy relationship by any means, but I think it's an honest one in the regard that like he found love in somebody else, and she was a good person, and yet he was so addicted to his sister that every time she called, he came crawling back to her.
Yeah. I mean, because... Wait, did Jaime never got married off because he was in the Kingsguard, right?
Right, supposed to be celibate.
Right. And she got married, just twice? Did she get married twice?
No, because didn't she blow everybody up when she was going to be married to Loras?
Okay, yeah. I wasn't sure if that actually happened. I couldn't remember the timeline on that. Okay, that makes sense. Hey, I don't want to get married. I love my brother this much. I'm going to blow this whole fucking place up. Yeah.
I mean, I think that also goes along with I'm the captain now.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of want to place a wager that Kevin picks Ramsay and Sansa's answer for some reason. That just seems like the Kevin answer.
That would be like the comedic Kevin answer. Let's take bets. I don't know. Like, I was expecting almost you to say Arya and Gendry.
Yeah, I was going to do that out of spite, but they really didn't have anything. I considered Tormund and Brienne, but it was only a one-sided love that never did anything. I mean,
if we're going by sheer aesthetics, it's got to be Jon and Daenerys.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, I'd considered even Jorah and Daenerys, but she never reciprocated any of that. In any way, I liked Tyrion and Shay for the first 2-3 years of them were awesome until she had one of the most underrated heel turns in Game of Thrones history. She doesn't get enough credit for her heel turn.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if that happens in season 4 or season 5. If it's season 5, that might be my question for season 5.
I mean, I think about it, and I'm like, how fucked up would it be to like fuck your children's life up multiple times, and then you steal his girlfriend from her and fuck her, to the point where she for money incriminates him in a fucking sham trial that you're putting. Like, Tywin is just fucking baller.
Tywin could, like, if they would have just done a full series on the life of Tywin, I would watch the shit out of that, because...
I mean, shit, he was the fucking hand for the Mad King, yeah.
Yeah, like, he did so many ballsy things, and you couldn't stand up to him. Like, there was nothing to do. Like, he was always multiple steps ahead of you, typically. Like, as powerful as Cersei was, when he's like, yeah, you're going to marry Loras, and that's that, like... Nobody stood up to Cersei like that, but he did.
I mean, the only one who really, like, equaled him was Olenna. I love that one scene with her and him in whatever season it was.
A sword swallower through and through. Season 3. That line cracks me up every fucking time. She was so delightful in what she did. Olenna. Yeah. Who was she? I mean, obviously... Wait, did we see who her husband was, or was her husband dead by the time the show started?
Her husband was dead. Like, we see her son, but who was fucking, what's his name? Toby Jones?
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. So, yeah. Alright, yeah, I have no idea what next week's question will be, because I'm still on season 3. I have not moved much in the past 2 days as far as watching anything, and I'm guessing you haven't. Have you watched much of it?
Shame. No, we just started our new Pathfinder campaign /D&D tonight, so I spent the last, outside of watching the episode we just went over, I spent the last day prepping for that to make sure I was ready for the start.
Yeah, I started, we did the podcast that one time with Joe, when we did the anthologies. I'm doing a virtual one with him and 2 of his friends, and I reiterate, I do not know shit about D&D. I do not really understand a lot of the concepts, so I'm just kind of along for the ride. We did 1 week. The very next week, had to get canceled because he ended up getting COVID, and now he's off for 2 weeks. So probably be a month before we start the second day. But I'm kind of excited about it. I really don't know much about it, and I don't know, gives me something different to do other than just watching TV and playing video games all the time, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I love playing D&D, but it's from the part I'm doing, it's a lot of work to prep all the time. So I'm just glad I have lots of time to spend it working on prepping.
Are you doing it in person, or do you do it virtual?
Yeah, we do it in person. We did it virtual for a bit during like the height of COVID. Mm-hmm. But and it would be a little different now because like the 2 people who didn't have like decent like computers have at least got a laptop that it would be doable on, and the other person who had like really shitty internet now has the best internet out of all of us. But yeah, it's just that much easier in person, and it's a whole camaraderie thing too. Like we go to our friend's house, and I feel so guilty, but her mom cooks for us like the entire time we're there. Like tonight she made us like basically barbecued for us hamburgers and hot dogs, and she's made us homemade popsicles, homemade pizza, and the girl whose house we play at, she works at a liquor store, so she always has a stocked bar too. So I mean that just helps at the same time.
Dude, that sounds like living it up right there.
I don't drink very often anymore, but I'll have a beer every time we play. But so I laugh because like I'm taking my physical for work, and I look at the answer. And it's like, how often do you drink? I'm like, 1 beer a week. I want to be like, when I play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. Yeah, because marking weekly, like, it comes off, it makes you sound kind of bad, right? I mean, not as bad as daily, but weekly still, given our ages at this point in life. I drink maybe like once a month at this point, so you take advantage of that shit though. Anytime you get somebody cooking and giving you a free drink, that seems like a really good deal. Plus you get to hang out with some friends. I don't know, as you were talking about this, all I kept thinking of is I still feel it's a missed opportunity that we've never gotten a video game version of Fireball Island. Just saying, there's no reason that has not existed yet.
I don't know what you would do in it, though. I mean, Fireball Island is fun, but it's kind of limited, you know?
Yeah, I think back in the Xbox 360 era, when you had, like, people creating, like, indie games on it, I think that would have been a great time to do it. I almost feel like nowadays, if you were going to do it, it'd be some cheap $5 game on Steam that probably would not get any traction. Unfortunately. I think the time is past for it. Unless like some company that does enough board games that's not Parker Brothers, because they put their board games out. But if there's another company that does a lot of board games, could make a whole compilation of board games, that could be an interesting avenue. I would like that. But yeah, I don't know.
There is a program on the PC. I forgot what it is. It's like basically like a virtual tabletop.
Yeah.
So you can. I've seen people talk about playing Dungeons and Dragons on it, but it's got games built in that you can just buy, so you can play Monopoly or whatever. I bet Fireball Island is in there just because of the sheer amount of stuff that they've had.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I haven't even thought to look on that. I mean, I got that maybe even 10 years ago. It's been a while since I've had it and like actually looked on it, but that's a really good point. I forgot that it really existed all this time. I'll have to check that out. But anyway, probably should wrap this up, I guess.
All right, so just to reiterate back from the beginning, Kent is going to be going over the same episode with Kevin later on this week. So I will say good night, Internet, and we'll be talking to you sometime about Season 2, Episode 5.
See ya! Alright, everyone. This is the second part of this podcast because things happen and, life happens, work happens, all that fun stuff. So it's just Kent with Kevin to get his thoughts on this. Still episode 64. It's just, it's almost the 12th of July now. Kevin, how's it going? It's been a busy week for you.
Yeah. It's going pretty good. I'm definitely sad that I missed out discussing this with you and Chris on Monday, but I'm excited to get into it and have this documented for history. The history of Westeros.
It's important because, history played a big role in this week's episode, of course. Historical documents and such. So, with that being said, we weren't really sure how to format this, but basically, I'm just going to try to bring up the main points rather than doing a scene by scene with Kevin, just so I'm not horribly redundant and more importantly, we get Kevin's thoughts on things. So,
and also, so we know that we don't know how little I understand or can comprehend of the show. We went scene by scene without me following Chris's lead. Because it's a lot.
Dude, I read well over 2 hours of material before doing the podcast with Chris, because I fully admit, I try to come in prepared because that's why I do the stupid detailed notes, because no matter what, he still knows the stuff better than I do. But, I usually go a little overboard on trying to figure these things out. On the plus side, I may have the whole entire show plotted out in my head now at this point, through various sort of quasi-spoilers, which doesn't diminish anything. For me, one thing, I don't know, were you on the podcast when Chris was saying that the difference between this book and the previous Game of Thrones books was that this is like a historical context. It's not written from like characters' perspectives.
I don't remember that.
Okay.
He talks a lot about books a lot, so
fucking book readers, man. Yeah, no, like because it changes everything. 'Cause if you ever read whatever Song of Ice and Fire or whatever it is, like, you know, each chapter is a different character's perspective on the events happening, so you get their thoughts and stuff happening. Whereas the book that this is based on, it's more like reading a history book on the accounts of Westeros, so it's told in a very different manner, which I didn't know. So I did find that kind of interesting, and that kind of changes how things play out to a degree.
Yeah, and also I guess there's not as many, well, maybe more in this season than last season, but there isn't as many characters in this book to probably really do that, or at least season 1, to do chapter by chapter.
Oh God, no!
Different perspective, you know. I mean, you look season 1. The credits were so quick, like the cat, or at least the actors. You know, there's a whole bunch of people working on the show, so, but not as many characters.
This show is a third to a quarter the amount of characters, like known named characters, compared to Game of Thrones. I really think it's probably close to about 30%. I think that's honest, because
sounds fair.
You know, if you think about, if you just go season by season and you just think about like big name deaths, Game of Thrones is just this huge list every freaking season. And yes, we don't have many seasons to go on here, but you know, it's just not a huge compelling list. We have not had anything remotely close to a Ned Stark dying, a Viserys dying. Even though we did have a Viserys dying, it was, you know, the Game of Thrones Viserys was something entirely of its own. Not
even comparable Targaryens, in my opinion.
Even like King Robert compared to King Viserys, their deaths are very different in how it shifted everything, although it was kind of the whole point of emphasis that got everything rolling, so to speak. So I guess that's kind of comparable, but, you know, even Khal Drogo, you know, he died, which I look back on it now, and I remember thinking how much I liked Jason Momoa, and I thought when I originally was watching, I'm like, oh, this guy's going to be awesome, and then he dies. And that was really just a kick square in the nuts, quite frankly, comparative to this show. I don't know. I fell in love with characters a lot easier in Game of Thrones, I think, than this show. I don't know, just my opinion, but
there's very few and far between in the show that I really feel like, and I guess we can get into one, because when I realized my favorite character of the show was Aegon, like, in this episode, I was like, this dude's the best.
Yeah.
We'll get into all that. But then I was like, of course, that's when I should have known. should have known. And I guess we don't completely know, but
yeah. All right. So this first chunk that I'm asking about is actually 2 full scenes, because we start off with Daemon in basically he's having his dream in Harrenhal. We have, and I mentioned this in the other podcast, when Daemon enters the throne room and sees Rhaenyra, young Rhaenyra, on the throne, it was a mirror callback to like the first season, episode 4, I want to say, when he's sitting on the throne and young Rhaenyra comes in to talk to him. So they captured that almost perfectly. Anyways, we have the dream. She's talking. She gets beheaded. Stuff about ravens. His hands covered in blood. Let's see. I don't know. There was a lot of stuff, like, just with him straight up tripping, and then we get a little further into the episode where we meet this girl named Alice Rivers, who we met. I want to say it was just the previous episode. We just didn't know her name at the time. And I wasn't sure. Did you pick up on Black Phillip, Kevin?
No. Was there a Black Phillip in the cauldron?
Before we actually meet Alice Rivers, that seconds beforehand, we see a black goat, and I'm like, it's fucking Black Phillip. I was so excited. I was like, so she's definitely got to be a witch. That was my gut instinct, and those are the really dumb things that I get super excited about. And we know kind of how it plays out. So, what was your thoughts on basically Damon's dreams? Damon's reluctance to send any messages back via Raven, and his stuff with Alice Rivers. Wrap up as much as you want about all this stuff in Harrenhal.
Okay. So the beginning dreams, what I really took away from the beheading, basically, it's everything we were talking about, his relationship with Rhaenyra. It's all pretty much out there that he is. I don't want to say he's working against her, but he's in this more for himself than anything, and kind of just holding on to her claim to the throne, because really, what is Daemon accomplishing on his own? And what would he accomplish with an army? Would he even get the armies if it was just in his name?
Larys actually,
go ahead.
He brings up basically later on in the episode, when Aegon's like, I want Harrenhal, and Larys is like, Harrenhal's as crippled as I am, and just let Daemon waste all of his time and energy trying to do stuff with Harrenhal. This is a great thing for us,
Oh, there was so much payoff, especially to our giant conversation of Harrenhal, and because I didn't really fully understand it until even just the memory of what it was. I can't wait to go back and watch Game of Thrones after we finish the season. But yeah, oh my god, it was everything we were saying, put into place. Let him have it. But I guess we'll get to that scene in a minute. What is the and then Alice Rivers, and then leading into him just coming out of, I don't know, just coming into consciousness, blacking out.
All right, so this is something Chris and I was laughing about. She's she's just it's making awesome. A drink, and then she's like, "Here, drink this." Now he's been tripping balls in his dreams and just having the worst time. Meets this woman who's very clearly not on the up and up, and he just downs the drink without question. One of the most intelligent guys, clearly selfish, doesn't seem like he would take that kind of risk, just downs it without question. It was kind of a weird character move. It didn't seem like something Daemon would do if you really think about it,
I get what you mean, but I think that's the state of where he's in. He's like, fuck it. And then he's totally drugged out. He basically roofied himself, and then comes to, who are you? It was, and he played it so well because the Sir, what's his name?
Sir Simon Strong,
who's actually his actor name. He's also a real Sir.
Oh,
I noticed that in the credits. He's the answer. I really feel bad, but yeah, he's. And I looked him up because I was like, who's this dude? And it was the first episode he was in, so I didn't know who he was. But I was like, oh, they got a real Sir 3-name guy who's considered one of the greatest stage actors in England.
No shit.
Or somewhere. Yeah, I would have. Yeah. in Britain, British stage actor. You know, that dude's got Shakespeare in his blood, I believe.
Yeah, high-end acting shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that we got Lena for all of 20 seconds, and we go from Lena to middle-aged white bitch. I thought, it wasn't even like she looked close or anything. Like, it wasn't like it was a black servant. It was such a they're pulling so much from Damon's past, you know, and it's not even close to what's really happening. And I didn't even think to say, like, you know, the dream where Damon's chasing what we think is Aemond, because we see the eye patch and then he turns around and it's Damon with the eye patch, which I thought was pretty awesome.
I had to rewind that because I was like, hey, who was that in the eye patch? And then my girlfriend's like, she said that it was like some blurry figure. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it was Damon. I'm pretty sure it was Matt Smith. She was like, we rewound it because there was such a quick scene. And it was, lots of cool stuff. I think the whole thing of him seeing his ex-wife, dead wife, right? That's the mother to his children.
Lena, yeah.
Yeah, I think just because he's seeing ghosts, that's what's happening here. I like how they're really kind of giving a haunted vibe, but also he's high as shit, not caring about anything.
Yeah, I like the fact that this is something very different from anything out of Game of Thrones, because Alice Rivers is she reminds me more of Melisandre than anything else. I don't really... She's her own thing, but I guess Melisandre's probably the starting point for comparison to any Game of Thrones character, and I'm all for that. You know?
Yeah, you can really tell that Damon's, like, going through some stuff, and it's, like, multiple things. It's, like, the whole, like, how he feels about Rhaenyra being queen, or, like, and he'll never, like, come out and say it. So we get that all in these dreams.
Sure. I mean, the longing for the past. Like, he wishes he could just jump in a time machine and go back 10, 15 years and fucking fix things, possibly with his brother, and possibly maybe be a better uncle. And I don't know what better uncle means in Targaryen, because that could mean all sorts of weird shit. But, yeah.
The good old days when he was just grooming her and she hasn't surpassed him for hierarchy for status of throne.
Yeah, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to just get more and more of this shit now that they've introduced Alice, and I'm good with it.
She's good for a season, right? For a good, we got, 4 more episodes, so she's good for 4 more episodes, I would believe.
I think she's going to be, I don't want to say a huge player, but I do believe she's going to be maybe not top 10, but a top 20 player moving forward.
Oh, in future seasons?
I think that's the vibe I'm getting from online reaction, and I'm pretty sure she's on the quote-unquote bad side, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, who's on the bad side, anyways?
I mean,
I'm not even sure.
The internet will tell you the green cloaks are the bad side, but the more I watch this, the more I'm just... We'll get to it, but, I mean, really, the more I watch this, I'm just like... No, I'm done backing the Black Council, because it's just one inept move after the other. So, I
like Rhaenyra, but basically everyone else sucks. It's kind of like the Starks in Winterfell, because Winterfell, they're all a bunch of dirtbags up there, and they're a bunch of hillbillies.
They're all doing meth, man.
Yeah. And we like the Starks. How do that's they're the rich people, the lords of the thing, but everyone else, the people they're lords of, scumbags. Yeah. And I say that with respect. I'm not judging the North.
Yeah. All right. So moving on from Harrenhal, I kind of want to just talk about this scene just quickly. Was Rhaenys first meeting up with Alan, and then Corlys enters the shot and immediately shuts the shit down. He's like, "Don't you have some fucking work to do? Get going." And then, Rhaenys was like, "Oh, your mother must have been beautiful," and basically she knows who he is. It wasn't a very long scene or anything, but I really thought it was a well done scene. And I joked with Chris, I was like, you know what? I take back any negative things I said about the shipyards set because they made really good use of it. So, I don't know. What'd you think about that? Do you like that Rhaenys clearly knows her shit? Did you like how this all played out?
Honestly, I have a tough time with those characters and Alan, and I honestly didn't know that he was the bastard son.
So is Adam
of Corlys. Oh, okay. Well, that kind of makes sense that they would be related, but I had no idea that was actually what was going on. Full disclosure, until you just told me. But it makes a lot of sense now because I really didn't. I have tough with those two. I really have a hard time following what they're saying and what's going on. I don't know why, but it's something that, when I watch this multiple times, those are the things I kind of lean in to. Maybe not next time, but the time after that, I'll lean into that stuff more. Especially now that you mentioned that, because that makes a lot of sense, and it's not something quite typical.
Well, think about this, and this is what really got me thinking. I did the deep dive down the rabbit hole when all of a sudden I was like, this puts so much in perspective of how Corlys always reacts and responds when Rhaenys brings up who's going to be the heir to Driftmark. Just the previous episode, she was like, it should be Bela or Rhaena, I can't remember which, or it could be Jace or whoever, and it kind of puts in perspective all these scenes where Corlys kind of is a little wishy-washy because possibly he just wanted one of his bastards to take over Driftmark. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but when I thought about it, I was like, that may explain how he's responding to all this stuff. It's something to consider, and let's face it, they did us a solid favor because there's not a lot of black characters, so we have these two new black characters, and they're the bastards of the main black character. It's thanks guys, you're helping us out a little bit, at the very least. Because it would have, it just would have been confusing otherwise, really.
Oh, yeah, no, it does help, honestly, because all the old white character English or whatever foreign accent actors in season 1, it was so hard to and there's so many of them. It was really hard. I knew Tywin Lannister, Charles Dance, because of The Golden Child, and Sean Bean because of
everything.
GoldenEye, and I've seen quite a few things with Sean Bean, and then Peter Dinklage, I knew a little bit, but that was around the time when I was getting to know him. But I saw some of those Michael McDonough movies with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. In Bruges, I remember him from that. And then 3 Billboards. I don't think I really knew too many other people on that show. I can't think of someone else that I would have probably known before watching it.
Yeah, no, it was mainly just unknown people for me at the time. Aside from, Sean Bean. Actually, I probably only knew Sean Bean and Robert. I can't think of his name. The dude played Robert. Yeah.
Robert Baratheon? Oh, he looked familiar too, but that's like a...
He's done stuff. I just can't put a...
He's one of those character actors. You're like, that guy, yeah. You know him forever. With a J.T. Walsh is what I'm calling.
That's a good one, J.T. Walsh. Yeah, that's a good one.
Favorite character actor of all time. Man. Rest in peace.
All right, so we'll move on. We got... we have 2 or 3 scenes with Alicent, but I guess my whole question is about Alicent's mindset. Mainly, she's drinking the moon tea, which is like the abortion beverage. How, how does she feel not only having to do that because she's following the same footsteps that Rhaenyra. She was accusing Rhaenyra of getting pregnant, and now she's a hypocrite. And Larys clearly knows, when he's talking about indulgences, he clearly knows that she's down with Sir Crispin. And later on, she's been reading, and when Aegon comes in, she's like, "Where are the books?" And he's like, "I had them removed." And she's like, "Oh, you destroyed them?" He's like, "No, I didn't burn them. I had them removed." I like that a lot. And then she gives him advice.
And to be fair, the room looked really great without the books. There was a lot of good architecture going on. So, So Alicent,
what's your thoughts on what's going on in her mind? Because she don't have any power.
Okay,
now. If you think about this is an episode about her having power anymore.
Yeah, no, and it was kind of being, I guess, it put that into perspective of when she told Christian that he was going to bring her brother.
Yeah, Gwaine.
It's her brother, right? Gwaine, he rules.
I'm starting to like Gwaine way more, and I kind of feel bad that I trashed him last week.
Oh, don't feel bad. And I'm starting to like Christian more, too, but we'll get to that. But yeah, but it puts a lot more into perspective of that, because it's like she had him take that, but that was kind of a moment of a transition in power. And I'll just say, not to jump too far ahead, but now Christian going off to war and being the face of this and being the hand, which is not really, I don't know. I guess Tywin would go in as the hand, right? He'd go into war,
technically
go into battle.
He was the hand when he came in to say, in Blackwater, that episode, he was the hand, but Tyrion was acting in his place while Tywin...
Oh, yeah. Who was the hand to Robert Baratheon?
It was Aaron.
Before
the guy who died. Robin? No. Shit, I can't think of his name. But, yeah, the Aaron dude that was married to Lysa, Catelyn's sister.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have to pick that one up next time.
Yeah, because it's mentioned, but it's a lot to put into thought when you don't know anything.
He died. Oh yeah, he dies before Robert.
Yeah, Baratheon we don't ever meet this guy, but we know of him through various. Correct.
We never see him. Oh well, that's
you would have to pay attention to all kinds of dialogue, especially some of the boring stuff that just doesn't necessarily come off that interesting, I guess.
Yeah, and it's all important. That's the stuff you got to lean into. So I've seen it 3 times all the way, and with this and then these discussions, the podcast stuff, I'm definitely going to be more open and receive more, absorb more of the realm. So was there anything else about that we got to? The abortion. I guess she's not a hypocrite because she killed her baby and Rhaenyra raised him as someone else's. So, I guess.
Right? I said hypocrite in the fact that remember, she came down on Rhaenyra when she thought that Rhaenyra went out on the town and got knocked up by Daemon when they went out to the bar that night, and Alicent gave Rhaenyra shit about it. So, a little hypocrisy, but it's normal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think she has become cold, and she is becoming something that she really doesn't recognize anymore, especially because of that relationship. But she's like a widow now, and she was acting queen, like running the place for a while. So, you know, this is like a tougher transition than I think than Cersei in the original show, though I think Alicent is handling it better.
Yeah, not only that, but I think...
Well, I guess depending on how you look at it, because Cersei did rule when she was
it's something to consider that she's also a little self-reflective, that when she was queen and Otto was giving her all kinds of advice, sometimes she was stubborn and pushed back on it, and now she's in a position where, you know, she's almost like in the role of Otto, and she's getting pushed out by her child, and that's got to be fucking weird too. Like, she did all this work to put her kid on the fucking throne, and now she just kind of getting tossed a little bit to the side.
And also with, you know, discussing with Larys about what he thinks about Aegon being the king, or like what
Viserys'
intentions were. Viserys,
because then she remember she asks the Grand Maester Orwyle when he gives her the tea. She's like, "What do you think? Like, did you know any of Viserys' intentions?" And Orwyle's just like, noped the fuck out. He's like, "Nope, never talked about it." Like, he did not want anything to do with that conversation, I don't think.
Which was so smart. But also probably true, right? I wouldn't see him like be yakking about like, you know what, I don't think my daughter's good enough for the realm anymore.
Viserys didn't come off like that type of
That's
talk.
not how he was.
He was conflicted, but a lot of times when he was conflicted, he just drank until he became so infected that I don't think he had a lot of deep conversations once he was infected.
Yeah, that too also, but yeah, Alicent also has kind of got that thing rattling around, like, maybe I did screw up by putting my son as the king. Or, you know, not totally embracing that, obviously, but, and she's kind of feeling around without saying, like,
well, I'll offer this question. I wish I was thought to ask Chris this. Do you think, given where Alicent's position is currently, would she have a better position had she never, like, tried forcing Aegon onto the throne and Rhaenyra ended up on the throne? Do you think Alicent's position would be better right now? Like, would she be more valued if she just played ball with Rhaenyra and was like, we're going to be friends and I'm going to support you? Or is she better off now?
Well, in the Game of Thrones, you can never really know. But I think that's an excellent question, and that's something I really didn't think about or would have thought about, I don't think. But yeah, I think she probably would have.
Now looking at the scenario, she probably would be happier in her own personal life. She would have a hell of a lot less aggravation. Like, people think having all this power is great, but then you have decision after decision. You got this constant target on your back. She would have dropped all of that and just lived a really good life. And she would have the ear to the queen, and it's more than what she has. And her grandson would still be alive, most likely. You know, like, this war wouldn't. She wouldn't have the death of Luke kind of on her conscience. And she definitely wouldn't have her grandson's death on her conscience. So she'd still be living a good life, probably have the queen's ear, and I don't know. Otto would probably still be around if he wasn't being like a totally manipulative asshole.
I think Otto would have ended up getting the boot, but Otto would have gotten the boot. But Allison would have, definitely had a word, even if they were like not getting along. Obviously, because the last episode, they're going to war, and they have a conversation.
They're going to a war where neither one can back out at this point. It's just beyond that point. So,
no.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, there was 2 scenes and then at least one reference, if not more, of just the absolute disaster that is the Black Council at this point, with like some of the guys like Alfred just being like, we should be doing this, and simultaneously, like, at first, like, you're kind of irritated because you see these guys, like, trying to vie for power, but then you kind of realize they're also just trying to protect their shit because their leader just fucking up and left without telling anybody anything. And if you put yourself in that perspective, I feel like I would start acting just like him. I'd be like, well, maybe I should have a voice. Maybe my voice should count since our leader just up and fucking took off. And then, like, to find out, oh, by the way, she went to visit our fucking mortal enemy. Awesome. And it's just a mess. And the only person that really, like, Rainey stepped up, but she didn't get the respect. But for the second time in the episode, Corlys entered the room and shut all the shit down because Corlys has presence, apparently. It's just a mess. So what do you think? Do you think if you put yourself in the position of some of these lords, would you not be acting in a similar fashion, or would you be content just waiting for this leader to just come back when Rhaenyra's off fucking around, Daemon's off fucking around, not responding? What would you be thinking?
Oh yeah, it's definitely bad. But to be fair, these lords felt that way already, and it's like, and then they have this reason to vocalize it even more, and so but yeah, you do make a really good point that it's bad and it's gotten worse, but at the same time they don't respect women to begin with, and you got to have Corlys come in there and shut it down. Rhaenyra, though, can hold her own, and we saw that when she shows up. But yeah, oh man, it was one of the worst meetings. It was worse than the House Green.
Oh, absolutely, and those weren't a picnic, but yeah, these were
real
worse.
bad. They're real bad too, but
yeah, and I mean, this blends into the next question, but like, I'm not sure. Did you pick up on the fact that the guy that snuck Rhaenyra into King's Landing last week's episode, he was the son of the guy who gets beheaded by Crispin?
Yes, and when that happens, I'm like, oh, that's who that guy is. But when you see the guy get beheaded, you still have no idea.
Right, yeah. All of a sudden, I'm like, with his response, all of a sudden, like, I'm on IMDb trying to fucking find another person whose last name is Darklyn. And there he was. I was like, I didn't pick up on that.
What castle?
Some of these
was that? Dutch? Okay, I'm not going to pretend that I...
Darklyn.
Darkling, yeah. So, I'm like, that's where he's from.
Yeah.
Answered. Asked and answered.
Yeah. It happens every once in a while, man.
Yeah. Very next episode, you got a question. It's like Lost. You get a question, you get another one.
Like, I was confused about, like, what the fuck the Crown Lands were. Because they bring it up all the time, and Chris kind of explained it in a good way, where it's kind of like King's Landing and some of the area surrounding it. Like, I think he said there was like 7 territories, and that's like one of the 7 territories is called the Crown Lands. But you never hear that term in Game of Thrones, I don't think. Maybe it happens in passing, but I don't recall ever hearing Crown Lands in that series.
No, I don't know if they really got into... We know Dragonstone But I don't think they really got into either of those places because there must have been I don't even know if they're still even there, you know?
Dragonstone
is still
definitely
there.
exists.
Dragonstone exists, but who knows about those castles after all this shit goes down?
Right, yeah, I can't remember. He looked it up while I was jibber jabbering, and yeah, like obviously, like the North is its own fucking thing. He said, where Highgarden is like I can't remember what it was called, but that's its own territory. Then you got like the Riverlands, and so on and so forth. So I did find that kind of interesting. But yeah, like, so as much as the Black Council is a mess, meanwhile, I should have just ordered this better, but whatever. My fifth question or topic was Crispin on his little crusade, getting House Starkland to fall in line, chopping the guy's head off, and Chris made a good point. He's like, Crispin was like one of the only people to actually, you know, carry out like the execution. Like Ned Stark, he said you're going to fucking die, and he carried it out. Robb also did it, and now we have Crispin, which is kind of weird given how, you know, fans perceive Crispin compared to the honorable Starks. I've also heard that by the end of the season, Crispin's gonna be more relatable. Maybe not more likable, but more relatable. And I'm intrigued, and I could actually kind of see a little glimmer of that in this episode. Did you see a little glimmer of that?
Oh yeah, and we'll get to that. And I actually think he is more likable to me, anyways. Like after this episode, not the beheading part, but I will say that beheading was pretty sweet. If
it was, yeah.
That was a pretty sweet beheading, and even the guy spitting at him, it was a really well executed shot. It was real quick and real good. And then on my TV though, and I have 4K, it was really really good beheading and pretty gory.
Which beheading did you prefer though, that one or a talking young Rhaenyra's beheaded head? That's a tough one for me. I liked both a lot.
Well, the first one's so like psychedelic and like metaphorical, and it was, I don't know. It was really. The first one was very artsy, right? The first one was very artsy. This one was very like straightforward and gruesome and just
right.
Because you get to see, it's not like really really gory, but like there's a good second, and you see that clean cut where it looks like, like a leg of ham,
It was one of the first times that, they didn't, like, cut away from the action, because that's what House of the Dragon's freaking known for. It's like, they set this up, and then the action happens off screen, and then you see the aftermath. We actually got to see something for once, which was nice.
Really, and it was really well done, and it wasn't, like, over the top, and it was... So I hope we get more of that, and I feel like they've been doing it in this season because they've been reserving it. They're making us want the bloodlust, and we're getting some of it, and I hope there's more in the next 4 episodes. So, and I feel like there is because we're in war.
Yeah, I
straight up.
All right, so my 6th point was talking pretty much as much about Aegon from everything in the episode up to him mounting up fucking regulator style and getting suited up on the armor, suit up in the armor. Basically, he has had a really... this was by far the most relatable Aegon episode. And if people hadn't been paying attention to how good this dude was as an actor, this episode should have opened everyone's eyes to how fucking good this guy is as an actor, and how shitty of a position it is in the fact that, A, he didn't really want to be king, but he had his grandfather and mother just pushing. He certainly didn't really, like, want his brother to be the smart, cunning guy that gets Vagar. He feels insulted that, like, oh, he wants a few friends on the Kingsguard, and, like, that's a bad thing. Like, he's just not meant to have any friends. He's supposed to just shut up, do nothing. He's not consulted on, like, what the fucking plan is. As soon as he's like, I want to do this, Aemond or somebody else just, like, you know, fucking conflicts with him. And you can really... I don't know if sympathize, but definitely empathize at the very least with Aegon in this episode.
And also he speaks High Valyrian really badly.
He does, but Aemond is on point.
Aemond is on point, and he pointed that right out to Aegon. So that was a really great scene too. But I felt bad for Aegon. I'm Team Aegon all the way. It's been leading up to it, and, like, yes, he's despicable in a lot of ways, but not really that despicable.
No, he's really not, because even when he tries to do something good, like when people were asking for more gold or more cattle, livestock, he's like, okay, yeah, sure. But then, like, somebody undermines him, so then he's like, oh, I guess I gotta be a dickhead type thing. Like, it's almost everything that he decides to do, somebody else comes immediately to him and is like, nope, yeah, do it a different way.
Yeah. And, like, what's the point of him even being king? And I think also he's doing it that he's so inexperienced. That is definitely evident, that his inexperience. But it makes sense. What experience does he have? He was never supposed to be king, and then it just sort of happened.
Yeah, like, I think people initially wanted to compare Aegon and Joffrey, and now we've seen such a complete shift between... There's really no comparison now in how... You know, Joffrey was groomed for it by Tywin. You know, and he had, like, a sinister thing to him where Aegon just kind of wanted to fucking party and fuck girls. Like, that was his thing. Wanted to jerk off out of windows, and, you know, like, that was his thing. He didn't really want to be a ruler.
Better than Joffrey's things, you know, who was way screwed up about sex.
Yeah, let me tie up a girl and just shoot arrows into her repeatedly.
Did Joffrey have sex?
I don't... You know, he had the whores, but he just had the whores beat the shit out of each other. I don't know.
He was kind of, like, insulted.
Yeah, sex did not turn him on, it didn't seem. Violence, it being addicted.
Yeah, he was wired differently. So, yeah, I don't see that. Because Aegon just seems like a regular kind of guy for the time.
Yeah.
Like, overprivileged, born into money and status, and, you know, he's basically the Roy children of Succession, for anyone who watches that HBO show. But, yeah, he's kind of more, like, normal than them, too. He's a regular guy. He's, you know, and... Yeah, and his performance was great, this entire season so far. So,
yeah,
anyways.
I would agree.
So we discussed the council, the conversation with his mom we discussed, and in that one I really felt for him, too.
Yeah, because he's like, first he's like, watch your mouth, woman, and she just snaps back at him because she's sick of being talked to that way. And then they have that immediate role reversal where she puts him in his place, is like, all you need to do is just shut up and do nothing and learn.
And it was the moment where Alicent just stopped giving a shit. Like, she's like, I have no... Like, there's nothing matters.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? You're going to hang me like the rat catchers? Like, well, great line. Great line. And that was a really good scene.
Yeah.
And I felt for him in that moment. I felt for him more in that moment than Alicent, and he needed that too. So, and I feel like those kinds of moments he might grow from. But instead of that, he just starts drinking, right? Like, pretty much.
and like I don't know. Like, I feel like we've all been there where, like, you've just had a shit day, you just start drinking alone, and, like, you just knock something over almost, like, intentionally, just, like, get more of a rise out of yourself to like motivate yourself to do something completely inane and dumb just out of frustration.
And do you think he would have been happier if they had a bad plan rather than like Christian and Aemond? I know that like they went behind his back and they're basically doing everything without him. But do you think he would have been? He was more pissed because it's a good idea, and he wasn't
He wasn't
told. He's not even He's not even
trusted to lead the war. That's his war, and yeah, there's a sense that. Just once, I think he would have liked to have been like, hey, guys at the council, what if we did this? And everybody, instead of just sucking up to him, was actually like legitimately impressed. Like, hey, that is a good idea. Let's do this idea instead of just being told, no.
Well, they automatically assume that he can't do the job. And then they treat him like shit because he can't do the job.
Yeah. It's just a shit situation for the guy.
Yeah.
All right. Next. Oh, do you have more?
So. Oh wait, we're doing up until he starts drinking and gets on the dragon.
Well, we haven't got to the montage.
God.
The montage is the next part here.
That's part of it, right? All right, let's get to it.
So we have Rhaenyra returning, and she tells the Black Council, "Hey, I was off meeting our mortal enemy. Blah blah blah. Take a lot of shit." She's like, "I'll think on it," and just bails. Jace visits her. He's like, "I just want to fight in your honor," because she told him he couldn't fight, but she let Rhaenys fight. And then for no fucking real reason at all, she's like, "Well, this is a good time to tell you this whole Aegon the Conqueror's dream, even though my life really isn't in any danger, because anytime I want to go fight, people tell me no, and I actually listen to them. We're just going to waste some time and have this really stupid montage that doesn't do shit other. The only thing that you really gain from it is knowing that the dragons have personality, and Sunfire really likes Aegon. They have a nice bond, and Rhaenys and Meleys have a nice bond, but it was kind of a stupid setup, really. Like, there was no reason for her to tell him that dream at this moment, I don't think. I don't know. Chris and I both, talked shit about this scene, so I don't know. What'd you think about it? Did it work for you, or was it kind of convoluted for you?
Oh, it worked, for sure. But I get what you mean. It was very on the nose of, build, all right, so we're finally getting to something, guys. We're going to finally give you something. More than just a couple beheadings in an episode. We're going to give you what you've been, what we've been building up to. I wouldn't say what was promised, but what we've been hoping for, I would say, from this entire series so far of House of the Dragon. Because we've gotten a lot of goods from Game of Thrones, and that's why we expect so much from this show, or why I expect so much from this show, but I also know that I'm going to have to wait for it. And it kind of started to build that anticipation, but I got really early on. It shows Aegon drinking during the day and knocking the flagoon over. He already drank one pitcher of wine, and then that cutting through with him, I was so hyped. I was like, this is gonna be awesome. There is no way Aegon is gonna die because he's drinking during the day. This is a terrible idea. Terrible people never have real consequences. They always live. There are consequences, and I thought there was going to be some, and we'll get to that when we get to the battle, but I was just this is going to be so good, and it wasn't what I completely expected, and it was really, yeah. So, yeah, it was cool, and I get that they have to do the story. Let's recap the story one more time, because we talked about it so much in the last episode. And her son, who is pretty snotty to her until she's like, let's go to war. Let's let a dragon out.
Yeah.
And you kind of, and there was a little bit of, sentimental schmaltz That's what I'm going to use. That's the word
it's a
I'm
good
gonna use. That's what comes to mind. Yeah. So yeah, that's how. But I get it. But yeah, Aegon drinking with the dragon too, and it's like, yeah, we were mentioning that relationship, that rapport, and like playing around with him. And dude, he looked lit. Like, and it was like he was like happy drunk. Like, you should not. If you learn anything from this episode, do not go to war on a dragon drunk.
Yeah.
Happy drunk. Go angry drunk.
Yeah, he was
drunk.
definitely like, you know what, this is a good idea. I'm going to be the hero. This, like, he talked himself completely into this, and so I'll tell you something now that I think you'll find interesting. So, one of the differences between the book and the show is that in the book, where Aemon's hiding in the trees with Vhagar, in the book, Aemond and Aegon are both waiting. So Aegon was in on the plan, according to the book, but they've changed the dynamic to add more drama and tension between the two brothers for the show. It is,
which is a good call.
For compared to like a historical context, this is the right call. I like it, but you know, it's just one of those random things that you wouldn't. Well, unless you read shit online, you'd never think that that's the direction the book went compared to how good it plays out in the show. Also, did you like where Kristen's guys are and they're taking down the trees and making battering rams? Did you pick up like where you've seen that scene before, like that area?
No, but it sounds very familiar.
As soon as I saw it, it was like one of those random things that I feel like, I don't know, I'm weird at how I nitpick on things, but I was immediately like, I'm pretty sure this is the same place that they held the opening scene to Gladiator. And it was. The woods, like...
Great location design. I thought you were going to talk about, like, maybe season one of Game of Thrones.
Like Gladiator through and through because of how... And they showed kind of in the after show, the behind the scenes stuff, they were talking about, like, you could see, like, some of the higher shots down, and it's such a great location for filming stuff of this nature that it sounds like other people have used it in the past, but I just don't know. I don't know who has, but yeah, Gladiator. So that's cool. Anyway.
Oh, I do want to say that Aegon and Aemond in the bushes together doesn't just change. I mean, that changes the entire dynamic, because I'm sure... I mean, I don't know, but I would imagine that Aemond wasn't...
Yeah, so... He yeah.
So Aemond.
I have to guess, and once again, I don't know how it's written in the book, but, you know, Aemond just straight up being like, oh, I'm going to fucking kill my brother here. And he just yells out Dracarys, and with full intent on killing his brother, just to take over. And by the
well, he knew that wouldn't kill him, though.
That was his intent.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can't just... I mean, they were fighting, and, like, I know that they did the Dracarys thing, but, like, you can't kill a Targaryen, dragon-riding Targaryen by fire. You can, because they all don't burn.
That's what I was talking about with Chris, I don't know, a week or two ago, and I so remember when I was like, why did...
The dragons burn, though,
fucking explode when they fall on the ground. Yeah, that's interesting. But, okay, so when, in Game of Thrones, when Viserys gets the fucking melty shit on his head, really,
well, that's different.
I mean, that's just melty gold compared to a fucking dragon fire. I mean...
Yeah, well, yeah, but no, why it's different is because I don't think Viserys would have been able to ride a dragon. I don't think he wasn't the true Targaryen, and that's what Daenerys says. That's when she knew that he wasn't to be king, because if you get burnt by fire, that's how she knew. So we wouldn't really know unless he was like on a dragon and had a dragon and then like got burnt still. Then I guess I would say I would agree with you.
I think the mythos is way fucked up because
that was
he clearly is a Targaryen.
Well, he's a Targaryen, but he is not one of like the real dragon blood, or I don't know, like he's not the chosen one to do this. And because time has passed, and I don't know if they really knew that they couldn't. But they're like the last Targaryens
in Game of Thrones,
right?
I mean, basically those two and Jon.
Yeah. And I know in the book it was like another generation apart. It was like their great grandfather that was the king, or something like that. And instead of their grandfather, who was the Mad King, or was it their dad? It
might have been their dad. That might have been the Mad. In the Mad, yeah, I think
in the show.
I think so.
And I read like somewhere that it was like it's greater apart in the book. So I guess So I feel like but the dragon blood and all of that stuff is kind of dying, and then without Daenerys, it probably would go.
Yeah, but
extinct, or whatever. Maybe not extinct.
To your point, though, even if he doesn't kill him with dragon fire, that's a hell of a drop. That's gonna there's nothing in Targaryen blood that says that you can fall 200 feet and survive.
No, and I did, obviously, and I honestly didn't really think of that. And it's like it's like if a dragon dies in the sky, he falls.
Yeah, as we saw with
every time
with Meleese and Rhaenys, and
and that's how it looked with Aegon too. It looked bad. And turns out, turns out it was.
I mean, it was really badass that, like, all right, I told Chris this. I fear you'll laugh. When Rhaenys is like just riding and it's kind of peaceful, and then Vhagar just shoots up, and that's when he gets the fucking bite on the neck and beheads Meleese. Yeah, I jumped because I was like looking at my computer because I was just kind of waiting for action to pick back up. And as soon as I looked at the TV, like that happened, made me jump. And then the second time I rewatched it, the same damn thing happened, even though I knew full well what was going to happen. So yeah, I'm an idiot.
Me too. Not the second time because I watched it on my cell phone the second time, but. Yeah, me too. Same moment. That was a badass fight, and I don't know if I've said this, but the dragons, that stuff's kind of cheesy. Like, I mean, for Game of Thrones, yeah, you go with it, but a lot of especially with Jon and Daenerys riding dragons, those scenes especially were like really looked cheesy and hard, and it just was kind of like cornball. But I go with it, and it's not that I don't like the dragons, but. That was badass. Like, that was so good, and I was definitely into it. And yeah, there was a really good dragon fight, and I was a little bit like, oh man, dragon fights, like, this is like Godzilla versus King Kong, New Empire, CGI on CGI fighting. Like, I'm not, and I haven't seen that movie, and I have nothing against those movies, but a little bit I just can't really get into them too much, like the new Planet of the Apes movies. Like, I like the Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but the further and further they go away from like humans, and it's just everything CGI.
Yeah, dude.
And the movies go on for over 2 hours. Like, give me 90 minutes. I'll
Right. I can turn my brain off for 90 minutes. Don't ask for 150.
But to like connect with these things, and maybe not the greatest examples, but yeah, well, maybe King Kong and Godzilla is a good example of that, because you're like, yes, but I think even maybe the dragons have a great,
I fully admit I am not a person that has a hard on for dragons, and I know dragons are like the number one appeal to some people to watch this shit, and I'm just like, dragons are like way the fuck down my list personally, because I don't know. I've always found the idea of dragons a little fucking cheesy, and this is coming from somebody who's a lifelong horror fan. But still, I'm just like, dragons they're badass, yes, but I mean they're also still incredibly cheesy as fuck too. They can be both things.
It was like a little, just with them flying on the dragons, it's a little never-ending story. Like, they do a lot of good stuff, and for the most part, I don't have any issue with it at all. But anyways, this is a testament to this episode and this dragon fight, because it's a dog fight. It's like Top Gun up there, man. It is, but with dragons, and it rules. That probably sounds absolutely awful to some people, and to me, 5 years ago, I'd say the same thing or whatever. I'd be like, Top Gun with dragons, that sounds awful, but
they said in the
terrific.
behind the scenes stuff, they modeled it after two hawks fighting like with their talons, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense, when you think about it.
Oh yeah, that was so good. And so I just want to say that when the first hawk, Melee's, gets Aegon Sunfire's like in the chest,
yeah,
that was the consequence. I was like, he's gonna fuck up his dragon. That's what's gonna happen. I still didn't think Aegon was gonna die, and that's what we kind of think. But you really don't even know that. But you know it's bad when he falls from the sky. I'm like, shit, this is not good. I'd like declared him my favorite character 3 scenes before. That's when I should have known.
Yeah.
That's when I should have known, because the same thing happened with Ceres. I'm like, this dude's fucking so awful and awesome. At the same time, it's spectacular. Sleaze. Just vile shit from his mouth. I did mention Walter Frey, but he didn't have that swagger and just that Viserys had. So.
Right. So what'd you think about Rhaenys's idea that, she came and did the shit that she needed to do. She looked back. She could have just kept riding on and been like, I did my job, but instead turns around to take on a dragon, 50% bigger than her big-ass dragon. Like, was it her just taking that shot, being like, hey, if I could take down Vhagar, we have a shot? Or is it her being like, well, I should have burned everybody at the king's coronation, and I have regret, so this is, my way of trying to make up for it? What do you think?
That's a really good question. I think... Because I think that Aemond was going to let her go, right?
I don't think Aemond was going to go chasing her.
I think he was like going to let her go. Like, he was like, I think everything he wanted to accomplish, like he fucked her up. They were going to go, like
game respect game, man.
She was gonna kind of leave like with a, like, not a full win, but like a half win.
Yeah,
really, Aemond did the damage, and I think maybe he was going to let her go because he could have been like, oh, that was her that brought the king down, and I was just trying.
Yes, I think that was kind of the idea.
I just put that together.
Yeah, I mean,
and I want to go back to something else too before that. Because, but no, we're on this, so
okay.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just curious on your thoughts, so go wander.
Okay. So, yeah, I think, but to your question is, I mean, I think that she went back because that's what she knew that it wasn't over, and that's what she went to go do. She didn't just, maybe Rhaenyra's son would have dipped out, but she went there to pretty much, when she saw that the other dragon was there, and then dragons, like going back, and oh my god, Vhagar, what a monster that dragon is. I had no idea.
Not fucking around when he's like, you may have lost an eye, but you may have won us a war with that fucking dragon. Like, he was not joking with that.
And they had the wingspans.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And like, Melee's is pretty big, but when they did the 2 dragons and the wingspan, oh my god, yeah. And I was really impressed with Vagar, and like I was like, this is a beast. This is like the creature from the black, not black creature, but yeah, like this is like a sea monster that flies in the sky. It's also like a dinosaur,
Like,
not a pterodactyl, like a fucking T-Rex in the fucking sky.
visually, it would be like you getting in a couple shots and then me coming at you. From a physical perspective, you know, I'm significantly bigger than you, and you just turn around and be like, fuck it, I was still going to fight you. Like, that, you know what I mean? Like, just the size difference was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, and I mean, I think she knew that she wasn't.
I think she was kind of at peace with it. Like, she wanted the Dragon Rider's death, and she took her shot. I don't know.
She did, and that's what she went to go do, and she took a shot, took it, you know, and it's still sort of like, well, it's less of a half win now that she dies, and they lose dragon.
They lost their biggest dragon, by far their biggest dragon.
Oh yeah, they're so fucked. I think that's what really that battle showed us.
But don't forget, remember last season maybe, when Daemon was looking for other dragons and he found like 2 big dragons that didn't have dragon riders yet? That will come into play.
Nice. Well, I want to skip to the beginning of the battle, because when Aegon shows up, because we got to get to Christian's speech, because that was
his
that was the best.
Speech.
Oh my god! Because like, and it was Gwaine being like, "This was your idea." And he's like,
Gwaine won me over so much this episode, man.
And, yeah, and not missing a beat. No, this is not. And then not missing a beat after that. He pulls that shit together. He's like, "This is terrible. I'm gonna make it work." He's like, "Hey, your king showed up." He's getting everyone hyped the fuck up. Like,
yeah,
this is. And he's like, this, and he at the same time he's like, because after he makes that speech, which is incredible, yeah, the Braveheart speech. He got me hyped, and the whole time you're like, dude, he's just pulling this out of his ass. He's using this, whatever he could, and I actually like respect him, like, for what he's doing as a man in battle. I was like, dude, this guy's good. I mean, he's, you know, using everything he's got for morale, and just from the hilarious situation of like his face when he sees that it's Aegon. And not Aemond. You know, you're like, this is, he takes a bad situation and makes it great, you know? And I think it really, you know, was definitely a factor of them making ground on the ground.
I think that scene is potentially a turning point for fans with Cole. I'm not sure, but like, I think everything about that, plus like when he gets up and he goes to touch that soldier's shoulder, and like it just disintegrates into ash, like, and then he's just looking for his king, just to come up on Aemond, who's like just about to kill Aegon himself. You know, it speaks to Cole, and I also like that he's. You know, we had the Kingslayer in Game of Thrones. We have the Kingmaker in Cole.
Nice, yeah. No, that is a good point too. And he's upset about Aegon. You know, about losing a king. And maybe it's because he's, you know, it's the girl he's banging's
a
kid,
little guilt,
you know?
and a little protection simultaneously.
Yeah, and then also the honor of that. He's really upset that things kind of turn out the way they do. I have a question. Did you notice, because I watched it with subtitles on the second one, do you know that it's Gwaine that is like leading the charge? We don't see it, but we hear them making ground in the castle, and it's Gwaine leading it into victory.
I always watch with subtitles anyway.
Oh, you got it with this. Yeah, I really should with the show, but I love the visual, so I think the second time I'll do more subtitles, because also I wouldn't have even known his name as Gwaine if we talked about it last time. Like, I wouldn't.
Gwaine Hightower, what a fucking name, man!
Yeah. I'm a fan of him. He's probably gonna die in the next episode. He's not my favorite character. I think Daemon. Daemon is definitely up there. And what was okay? So yeah, when we get to Christian, seeing Aemon's already got his sword out, so like we don't really know what he did. Like if what we think or what we see or I feel is that, and I'm sure everyone does, is that if he wasn't dead, Aemon was going to kill him.
Aemon was going to finish the job so he could be king because he's sick of his brother ruling like a jackass, in his opinion. And
this is about being king.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, no, that's kind of what I thought too. He is he's proven how calculated he is. And he takes the knife. Yeah.
The dagger. Yeah.
So I mean, I doubt that Aegon's gonna be breathing in the next episode, but they really didn't show him very well. But that's what they'll do.
Well, I'll without saying it, I will say this to lead you to something. Remember last episode, I focused on how Aegon had that scene when he was trying on the armor, and when we had that one scene where he's looking in the mirror, you saw half of him kind of in shadow, and now the last thing we see of Aegon in this episode is half of his body. They're really telling us they are foreshadowing something here.
Yeah, because it was very deliberate. No, I didn't notice that, but that makes
a lot they're being very deliberate with this half his body.
Was the way of the drag, yeah, because you figured they would do like at least a shot of his face to be like he's dead. So yeah, that is definitely not something I picked up on, but I did obviously notice.
If it goes according to the book, this is going to just be awesome. That's without spoiling anything. If it goes, which it clearly is, I mean, they're setting it up, obviously, it's going to be something to behold. I will say that much.
Nice.
Also, props to the guys at Rook's Rest. Like, those archers took down a lot of Cole's guys. I mean, they were outnumbered, 10-1, 15-1, and they did some work.
They were kicking ass.
Yeah.
They were kicking ass. For sure. I mean, up until Aegon shows up, it was kind of like... But, I mean, I guess that was sort of part of the plan. But, yeah, they weren't going full board. But, yeah, which probably isn't. If you're going to war, you should probably be going full tilt all the time.
Right, yeah.
Even if it is part of the plan,
I must admit, I was a little disappointed that my favorite character had one whole scene where she was just off in the balcony watching when Rhaenyra returned to the Black Council. I was like, damn it, I need my Saria to have more scenes. But something I forgot to mention earlier, in the very first thing we were talking about in Harrenhal, did you pick up on... All right, so when Daemon is seeing Lena as the server, and then it becomes the White Lady, do you realize who he was talking to, or who was talking to him? The younger guy with the long hair. Do you pick up on who that is?
No, but he's with the
Blackwoods.
The Blackwoods, yes.
So, I think it was episode 5 or so, when they have the scene where all these lords are coming to vie for Rhaenyra's hand in marriage. There was the teenage boy, and all the grown men made fun of him, and then he got into a fight. That was young Willem Blackwood, and then he killed a Bracken. Now that's Willem grown up.
Oh, no, I didn't. I don't really remember that. I do vaguely remember when he said in this episode that he was like going for Rhaenyra's hand.
Yeah. That
I kind of remember a little bit of like courtships, but I don't really remember. It all sounds vaguely now that you bring it up, but yeah.
Yeah, it was just like this badass 13-year-old that gets made fun of by all these grown men, so he fucking takes on the guy that was talking shit, and that was the very first time we saw Blackwoods and Brackens go at it without even knowing the significance of it.
Oh man, yeah, I can't wait till this season's over so I can like rewatch it. I don't know if I should rewatch season 1 and 2 again or just like
yes,
start and then or just start from Game of Thrones. I should probably do season 1 and 2 of House of the Dragon and then start Game of Thrones, right?
Yes, yes. I because dude, you pick up on so many little things when you every time. Like I know how you are. Similar to me, you are going to pick up on things that you just didn't think of before. Like, watching season 2 of Game of Thrones with Tywin and Arya at Harrenhal, like not even realizing the significance of it when you're watching Game of Thrones, but now to have all of that in perspective.
Absolutely. What a great episode. I think, honestly, I'm going to say that this was the greatest episode of the whole entire series so far, of season 1 and 2. That I think. I can't really remember an episode that I was so hyped about. But the pressure's been building for a while.
So
there's one thing I can think of.
Yeah.
In season 1 that I lost my shit over.
Which was?
He's a bastard!
What was that? Corliss's brother, right?
Yeah, I got so stoked about that. I don't even know if it was that point, but yeah, it was my favorite. That's all I can remember. I mean, there was other really cool stuff, but that I lost my shit over.
I think his name was like Vaymond or something, and he was so fucking and Damon's reaction to just yes, like just straight up, don't give a fuck, I'm doing this.
And that was one of the first times we got something like that in season 1.
Yeah. To your point, I think this was the most hype episode. I'm not sure if it was my favorite and or best. It was the most epic and the most hype. Whether it was the best from beginning to end, I don't know. I think it might be because I love so much of the Harrenhal stuff. Honestly, like you give me 2 really good things in Harrenhal. You give me a couple of scenes that I can dig on the side, and then the war stuff. Yeah, I really liked it. I think the internet's overrating the fuck out of this, but that's what the internet does.
I don't know. Well, I mean, you give me day drinking on a dragon into war, like, dude, win. Yeah. I might give it to. He's a bastard.
So I normally I've been forgetting to watch the trailer at the end of the episodes, but I watched this one, and the only thing I can remember, like, because I obviously have an understanding of where this is going, but one of the scenes that they show is like a parade where they have Melissa's head on like a cart, and they're like doing like a parade through King's Landing, and I was like, I don't know if this is gonna be hilarious or whatnot, but it made me giggle just seeing like the whole idea of like this parade of a giant dragon's head. I don't know. It seems so kind of silly and absurd to me.
Yeah, sounds like a good time.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any other final thoughts on this before I get to the Game of Thrones question?
No. Just if you're going to day drink and ride a dragon into war, just make sure you're pissed drunk, not happy drunk.
Yeah, I'm.
Aegon, I love you. You're the one true king.
Like, no character was built better than Aegon from this episode, right? Like, I almost feel like Aegon, even if he's not a likable character, he's a relatable character at the very least now.
And I feel like you kind of feel a little bit robbed, because even if you don't like him, you don't have that opposition of like, oh yeah, no, easily he shouldn't be king. Rhaenyra's way better at, doing all of this stuff. She was more well equipped. But I also feel the one thing I'll say that this episode proves is that if Rhaenyra was made queen straight up, no Aegon, no anything, she would have no respect, and she really probably wouldn't get much done, and it would be a bigger mess than when she does this, she'll actually deserve it. And not that she didn't deserve it before, but she'll actually deserve it, and she'll have war experience. Right?
Okay. Which side are you leaning toward now? Are you green or are you black?
I'm not really on side. I'm on Aegon's side, but I'm not really. But if Daemon's taking over, I got beef.
See, I don't even know who's my second favorite character right now between Aegon or Aemond. Like, I like both of them for two very, very different reasons. And Daemon's obviously, like, in that conversation.
Rhaenyra's, like, probably my second favorite character. Well, maybe not. I think there's Daemon, but I really liked Rhaenyra for, like, very opposite reasons than I liked Aegon, because it's like you got the fool, and then you got someone who's, like, really good, and, you know, someone that I'm starting to get really hyped on, and I think would be a good leader. So, I don't know, you know, I'm like this coming on election, I'm gonna go independent for now.
I never vote, and I will go to my deathbed never voting. I am proud of this. It's one of those things that I do because I do not take the time to inform myself of anything. So I do. Why should I vote? That's how I look at it. Like, I'm not.
I know what you mean, because I feel the same way when I go to elections or like local elections, and I don't know anybody, and it's like even when I go to presidential elections, and I'm like, I might be more, especially with people I don't know in local elections, like sheriff and stuff. Like, if they're not contested, like, it doesn't tell you, like, this sheriff's, you know, Republican or, like, you know, more conservative and going to be stricter about stupider, you know, things that really aren't that big of a deal. You know,
plus on the local level, that stuff typically is usually kind of meaningless.
Yeah, so
like
definitely, I guess, in that way also. But, you know, you don't want people, like, getting stuff passed, you know. Yeah, you don't want shenanigans. You don't want to vote for someone that turns out you really don't like. But I honestly don't. I'm not really all that involved. But I did try to get involved, and I felt while I was voting, I was like, I feel like I'm more dangerous voting without knowing anything. So I know exactly what you mean. That's what. All right, we can go on.
All right. Here's this episode's Game of Thrones question. I'll just read the message I sent you guys. We saw the end of Jon Snow and Ygritte. Was this the saddest ending to a romantic couple in Game of Thrones that we actually see in current time? So no flashbacks, no bullshit, just a basic question.
Yeah, no, not at all. I really didn't really care for that storyline too much. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I like, you know, some of the characters later on. I did enjoy her parts, and I did like it.
Do you think the fans have overhyped them up for? I mean, realistically, what was? I don't even know how many episodes. It wasn't a ton of episodes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know.
Be together.
What the fans think, because I just have, like, my girlfriend, and she doesn't really get into any of that either. I will say this, Kent, when I told her about the Red Wedding, which also, I think that is actually more of a devastating end than Jon Snow and Ygritte, just because you kind of, like, warm up to Robb Stark and then this lady, and then, like, she gets stabbed 15 times in the stomach by, like, was it a couple different guards? Like, robotically.
I didn't warm up to them. So
okay, well, I thought
can't
that
vouch for anything.
Would you?
But I think more fans warmed up to them. I think really what it comes down to is Ygritte was attractive in a way, and people really want Jon Snow to have a girl. I really think it's as simple as you have a girl that's not in the traditional sense insanely beautiful. She's a very good-looking girl, and fans want Jon Snow to have a girl. I think those two things just kind of play into fans. Like hardcore fans, they fucking want the weirdest shit for these characters. I think that was kind of
and I feel like it really had to. Yeah, it was. I mean, the way they did it, that was pretty good. I'm gonna give it to him because it was very like the kid just gives him the heads up. Gotcha, got your back, bro.
Right? Yeah,
bros before hoes. Yeah.
So, what would be your answer then?
Well, let me ask you this first. So, what do you think is more heartbreaking, the Robb Stark and what's her face, pregnant dead baby, dying fetus?
Yeah, I don't remember her name,
dying
but yes,
fetus, or Jon Snow and Ygritte. Okay, all right,
Jon Snow and Ygritte.
You do have.
I just seriously. Well, not only that, I mean, I loved her so much in this that when I saw Honeymoon was like a thing, like a horror movie with Rose Leslie, I was like, yes. And then to find out it was actually a fucking good movie, like, is even better. Like, it's not because I love her, it's because that movie was actually fucking awesome.
No, that's cool. I gotta get on that one.
But so here's the thing. Chris and I end up with the exact same answer, and I was like, do I change my answer? I was like, no, I'm not going to overcomplicate it. I'm just going to go with
what's your
one I came in with.
Pick?
And
dude,
Cersei and
that's
Jaime.
mine. Douche.
See, we're all fucked up.
That's
we are
the saddest one, honestly.
It is. Because the whole time she loves Jaime, and Jaime does everything in his power to get back to her, and even leaves Brienne at the end to be with his woman.
And
his sister,
fighting a cause with the enemy. Like it's beautiful. No, and it's just all out of like pure vanity, like their relationship.
She may have loved him more than she loved her children, though.
Yeah, I mean,
she definitely loved Jaime more than Joffrey. I don't know about Marcella
if any of them,
or
I think
Tommen.
Marcella, but that might have been because she was taken from her. So there's that kind of, when you throw that into the mix, and Jaime would keep coming back,
right? Right, and back for more of that sweet loving. And how they died together too.
Yeah.
I mean, not many other couples died together other than Robb and
It was definitely. I mean, it was kind of like a disappointing end in some regards. But when you asked that question, I was like, man, it is like, because it's so twisted, but there is that romance, and they do have a romantic love for each other. But then it's more than that because they're brother and sister and they're twins, so like they're so vain and narcissistic that the only person that they really can love is their exact gender not opposite, but the exact same person but opposite gender.
It was poetically beautiful in the weirdest of ways, but I don't know, when you go back and think about it, there's not a ton of romantic couples because they were often one-sided. And, like I wanted to joke and be like Tormund and Brienne, but Brienne didn't like Tormund. And, like Jorah had a huge raging clue for Daenerys, but she didn't feel that way back. Daenerys and Drogo, I guess, decent for what it was.
You kind of warm up to them too, but yeah, I mean, like, it's basically marital rape.
Until she learns how to grind on top of him, that is a little more consensual.
Then she makes it consensual, but it's basically marital rape until that point.
and then she straight up's like, "Oh, we just saved this woman who's possibly a witch. Save my husband, even though he's going to rape you. You have good intentions, right?
I was raped 23 times before you showed up. You think you know anything about me? I was on a pile of dick when you showed up. I was under a pile of dick. Yeah. So, yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't think that it was going to be Jaime and Cersei. I didn't think that... I would believe that one of you would have picked it, but for all three of us to pick the same one, I was like, oh, go ahead. Well, yeah, that's incredible. So, we all should be doing this podcast together.
Yeah, well, hopefully the next one will work out a little bit better for schedules. And
oh yeah, definitely. Oh, I actually have one question. Chris, did you know that Aegon was going to die?
Chris, are you on mute?
You gotta edit that in. Did he know?
Does he know what?
That it was going to end the way it did. That it's pointed. I guess you're kind of saying that there's something open about Aegon and the half shadows and stuff. So I know you don't want to spoil anything. So with
I'll just. I mean, obviously Aegon lives. I don't think anybody walked away saying that he's dead.
I feel like yeah, because he went drinking with a dragon and then it seemed pretty bad. And he's my favorite character. So yeah, I honestly thought that that's how they were gonna do me, just like they did with Viserys.
We're gonna have a big upheaval. And it like the way that they did this compared to the book makes way more sense for a TV series. That's what I will say about it.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know if you have any other questions. If not, tell me what you have or haven't been able to watch based on your work schedule and the quick turnaround of these podcasts.
So I've watched a few things, but mainly I started watching Lost again. I'm almost done with the first season for about like a couple weeks. And I've seen it so many times, so I can like play Yahtzee on my phone, or I can get pulled in, or I can like, fall asleep to it and then just catch up anywhere. I love Lost, but you got to take big breaks in between it. But I'm enjoying that this time around, and it's summertime.
Where is it streaming?
Hulu.
Okay,
have you seen it?
I've only seen a couple of episodes. I know quite a few people in the cast that I like, so I need to give it another shot and try to get past the first two episodes.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, but if you really don't like the first two episodes, then maybe not.
Then it's probably not going to pay off.
I mean, no, there's a lot more stuff that happens, and it goes in a different direction. I honestly like the first season the most. I love the premise of a plane crash and people on an island, and without the supernatural elements to it, so. But yeah, when watching it a few times, it is pretty impressive, especially for a network show. Like for network hour-long dramas, I think there's like Twin Peaks and then there's Lost, and I really don't know of anything that's really in that caliber. I'm sure there is, but yeah, it's like really high caliber television, and I mean they're very different too. So, but it's got some shit going. I'm sure the people who did Lost are absolutely David Lynch fans. So.
That would make some sense, yeah. I've never watched Twin Peaks.
They're definitely Stephen King fans. So if you like Stephen King, it's got a little bit of that, and they don't hide it.
Yeah, I never fucking watched Season 2 of Castle Rock on Hulu, and I really need to do that, because that's got the young version of... Was it Dolores Claiborne, or was it...
I've never seen the second season either. The first season was good.
I really liked the first season
but then I spent some time, so I don't know. There's only two. I might as well pick it up. I'll probably not even rewatch the first season again. I liked it. It was good.
They're not connected, so you don't really need
perfect.
to.
Yeah, because I was feeling like I don't really feel like I want to rewatch Castle Rock or... Okay, that's cool.
Did you watch The Leftovers?
No, but that's kind of
that's a Kevin
kind of a show that kind of seems pointed towards me, that my energy would gravitate to, or from what I've heard. But
that and the Nick, I would highly recommend the Nick.
Kaylee's been
as well.
recommending that for like the entire time we've been dating for like 6.
Dude, it's amazingly well acted. The second season does go downhill compared to the first season, but
I'm a big Soder.
It's still
I'm a big
show.
Steven Soderbergh fan. So, and
I'm not. That's why I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, but I loved it.
He's an executive producer. Well, I mean, he's got so many different kinds of movies. I think I like that, even if I don't like all of them. But I was buying a lot of his movies. Like, I probably will watch Aaron Brockovich one more time and then get rid of that one. But when directors have lots of different kinds of movies, I really like venturing into that filmography of like different genres and different things, you know, like even like before he retired and came back, and then he came out, and he hasn't. I mean, his movies are good, but I don't think he's done anything like as good as his last movie. What was his last movie? With Rooney Mara and Channing Tatum and Jude Law.
Oh gosh, I do not know.
That one's really good. That one's really, really good. It was after Magic Mike, the first one. It was Magic Mike, and that was like, yeah, he did Magic Mike, and I was like, I worked at a sex shop, and I don't know, I'm going on a tangent, but people would be like, oh, Magic Mike, and then I found out that Steven Soderbergh directed it, and I was like, oh, I have to see this. Like, the guy who did Traffic and Sex License Videotape did Magic Mike. I got to see this. So,
you bring up a good point. Like, all right, so I mean, and I don't have to tell you, like, I'm a huge Tarantino fan. Like, I love all of his movies aside from Death Proof. But when I talk about greatest director to me, I always end up going with Kubrick because of his range of movies that he makes compared to Tarantino. I don't want to say has a niche, but he kind of does to an extent, whereas Kubrick was all the fuck around, like, just all over the place with his shit.
Yeah, Bill Maher said that basically all of Quentin Tarantino's movies are revenge films, more or less, except for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is a love story between two men.
I can see
like
that.
Like bros. And, yeah, I thought that was like a really fair, and he actually said that to Tarantino, but he's like, all your films are revenge films except for this one, and, you know, and he's like, we love all your movies, and I think Quentin Tarantino really likes the fact that people are responding to this movie. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is an old man movie, 100%. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I only watched it once. I liked it.
Oh,
there's a few of his that I've never gone back and rewatched Django or Hateful Eight either.
Hateful Eight would deserve a rewatch. Django, you can rewatch up until Christoph Waltz and Leonardo DiCaprio are no longer in the movie, because then it just dries out. But I mean, I rewatched it a few more times since then. I think Django is my least favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, but I still think it's good. I think Leonardo DiCaprio, it's top 3 performances by him, because it's just so like unlike him and vile and uncomfortable and disgusting and hilarious.
Yeah, no, it was definitely one of his best.
Yeah, that's my vibe right there. Everything I just said about Quentin Tarantino. That's Quentin Tarantino. I tell people that like Quentin Tarantino. I think Quentin Tarantino or that Leonardo DiCaprio is so good in Django Unchained, and they like look at me like I'm a bad person, and it's like I'm not a bad person. I just like bad characters. Like I just, yeah. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, definitely, it's one of my favorite movies, especially if I'm sick. If you're in bed, you need. You know, you just want to find something to watch and just ride it out. It's so good. I've seen it like 6 times, and I wasn't that impressed with it when I saw it in the theater. I was like, this isn't even like a top 10 movie for me for the year, you know? And I was like, that was kind of weird, but...
That came out in a really good year for movies, though, to be fair.
Oh, yeah, no, it really was. But I look at even the Oscar nominees that year, you know, it was like 7 or 8 out of 10, you know, like, and Quentin Tarantino like changed movies for me, so it really took the second or third time. I heard Dana Carvey, he hosted, I think, the Jimmy Kimmel show, and Quentin Tarantino was a guest, and he was like talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he said that he was on a podcast his podcast with David Spade, and Daryl Hannah was on there, and Daryl Hannah was like, I've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood like 8 times. And it was only been out for like a year or two. 8 times? Like a 3-hour movie? And then Dana Carvey's like, oh. And I was like, I've seen it 7 times. Or like just some crazy number that, you know, I was like, oh. I used to do that with Quentin Tarantino when I was a kid. So I watched it for a second time or a third time. Because I saw it the second time and I got it a little bit better. But
yeah, I mean, dude, I didn't like Pulp Fiction the first 2 times I watched it, and now I've watched it 30 sometimes, and that's not an exaggeration. Because
oh no, not at all.
When I moved at one point after I had the house fire, we had like a free month of like HBO or whatever when we got cable in the new place. And Pulp Fiction happened to be on like every day, and I would catch it, and there'd be nothing else that would interest me, so I'd just leave it on. And I watched it so many times in a month that, yeah, it was like I was up to 30 something. It was like just a stupid number.
And it's a movie that, like, when you watch it on TV, you come into basically any part. Like, I would see that it would be like the very last scene, and it'd be like, hell yeah. You know, they're in the diner.
Oh,
Fuck
yeah.
Fuck yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, John Travolta. Because I remember being on TV all the time. I've seen it. I've probably seen Reservoir Dogs the most because before Pulp Fiction came out on cable, I think it was, yeah, I must have already seen it because I bought Reservoir Dogs. I saw Pulp Fiction once, and I was waiting for it to come out. I don't know. I guess it was probably out on video or video stores, but I don't know. I was probably waiting for cable to record it or something. And I watched Reservoir Dogs every day while I stitched Bad Motherfucker into a wallet for a week. Every day. Like, I would watch it 2 times in a row. I'd get out of school and I'd watch Reservoir Dogs and stitch Bad Motherfucker. So I watched it at least 5 times during the school week.
So, I'm going to tell you something right now, Kevin. In my hand, what do you think I'm holding?
Bad Motherfucker?
Yep, I have a Bad Motherfucker wallet.
That's awesome.
That's fucking hilarious that you brought that up. I'm like, yeah, I bought that. I saw it online. I'm like, yes, I will buy this. And
I was 13. I was 13 when that came out, and changed everything. Wait, 94? I was born in 81, yeah. So, I probably saw it in 95 or, like, end of 94. I don't know.
Yeah, I rented it when it first came out. I didn't get it, but there were, like... I didn't get it, but there were scenes that I liked. So then, like, the next time I watch it, I was like, oh, there's more scenes that I like. And I'm now getting kind of used to, like, how it's weird chronologically, and then I think the third time, all of a sudden, like, the epiphany washed over me. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not supposed to get it, but I do get what they're doing, and yeah, like, loved it.
Oh, when I noticed that you could hear Samuel L. Jackson in the beginning of the movie, whether in the diner between Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer, and then you could see John Travolta walking to the bathroom, it just opened another level. Because then when you get to the end, you can kind of hear... Oh, no, I guess they cut to Tim Roth going to some coffee, because they're like, yeah, we're here. This is where it's all going to happen. So, and it really took years apart from watching Pulp Fiction and watching his movies, and I'm like, I hate to say it, I think Pulp Fiction is his best movie. May not be my favorite, but I think it's his best.
It's probably it. I don't know. See, I usually count Kill Bill 1 and 2 as a whole movie, and I know that's not fair, but if I count, if I count it,
that's what he does.
Then
he counts it as one movie.
Then to me, that's his best work.
Fair.
But, dude,
I can see that for you.
yeah, and I don't, dude. I don't like anime, and yeah, I love the anime that they did in that. And I don't know. There's just a lot of things. Each one holds a place in my heart. Like I think that's the easiest way to put it is that each of his movies, like I don't even know how many times I've seen Four Rooms. Quite a few times though.
Oh yeah, I mean I've seen it over 20 times at least.
I have not.
That was another movie I watched. Yeah, because it was on cable all the time, and Quentin Tarantino only had 2 movies out. He had Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and then Four Rooms came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Jackie Brown. So all I had to do was watch this guy's movies, and then you watch all the rip-offs or movies that were kind of getting made because of Pulp Fiction, because it had, it was good for indie crime films with moments of humor,
right?
And then they punched up a lot of those scripts after the fact, but those scripts were around before, for a while, and then people were like, oh, we need a Pulp Fiction Tarantino movie, so then those movies can start getting
things
funding
to do in Denver
for
when
better,
you're dead, or while you're dead.
Hell yeah, that's a good one.
And it really is.
That's one of the better quality ones.
Yeah.
There's a few of them out there. I think Way of the Gun is also up there.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Oh, Christopher McQuarrie, who wrote The Usual Suspects.
Oh.
He won an Academy Award for writing The Usual Suspects, and then he directed a movie, his first movie, that he also wrote, and it's Benicio del Toro, Ryan Phillippe, dude, Scott Wilson's in it, dude. It's a crazy cast that just keeps going. Juliette Lewis and her dad, Jeffrey Lewis. It's character actor heaven. Tay Diggs is in it, dude. I can just keep going with the cast, but yeah, it's incredible. It's one of the best crime thriller, neo-noir. It's like a neo-western, really, where all the cell phones don't have service in Mexico. Based in kind of current time. Best thing Ryan Phillippe's ever done. I don't know if that means anything.
Man. I'm a huge Cruel Intentions fan, so...
Oh, yeah, no, that's really good, too. That's a really good movie. And also, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I liked him in that more than I liked the movie itself.
You know what? I did not like I Know What You Did Last Summer when it came out, and then I watched it again, and I still was like, this is stupid. But now I watch it, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of dig this fucking movie.
It was on the Criterion Channel for, high school horror or something.
No shit. I didn't...
Yeah.
Huh.
They had a bunch of weird movies on there that you wouldn't expect, Those were the movies I watched the first time, but there's a meme that I saw with, the guy who, does the no thing. I don't know if it's Drake or something, but it looks like Drake, and he's like, nah, and then there's another picture of him smiling, yes. So the no picture is, oh man, what were we saying? Totally lost my spot.
Dude. We were talking about Way of the Gun, and
I know. I know
okay.
what you did last summer. So it's like I know what you did last summer on a streaming service. No, I know what you did last summer on the Criterion Channel. Hell yeah! It was kind of one of those
That's
things
funny.
sometimes. Okay, so the only other thing that I'm watching I want to is I'm back to the Wes Craven movies in my collection, so I made it to The Hills Have Eyes, and I watched Deadly Friend again, which is amazing, now that I've soaked in what it is. It is unfortunately not the X-rated version. I thought that's what I was buying. That's what I read, that it was the Arrow release, Scream Factory. But
because I know digital, there's one that's blue and one that's red, I want to say.
Yeah. So I'm a little disappointed by that, but I still love the movie, and
sure.
So I don't know. And what's up next? Serpent and the Rainbow. I have Nightmare on Elm Street, but I have that collection that you got me, the Nightmare on Elm Street, so it's kind of in a different space, so it's not on the shelf like that. So, and I would definitely watch it, if not that we just did it May.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Serpent and the Rainbow because I just watched an episode of Tales from the Crypt that kind of reminded me of that. Like, so I woke up this morning, no internet, because we had a storm and something about the storm fucked up the internet. So I didn't have internet for probably first, 2-3 hours I was awake. But I have, like, my Plex server set up, so I have a bunch of stuff that I've saved to a hard drive. Like, I ripped all my Tales from the Crypt, so I just watched Tales from the Crypt this morning. And once again, it was a great time. And I told Chris during when we were recording, I'm like, as I'm watching these, I am making mental notes of, like, which ones I am giving you, which ones I'm giving him. Because each episode speaks to me in a very different way. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, I'm glad you're doing your homework, because I actually thought about that too. I was like, I wonder if Kent,
unlike
how
Fear
it's gonna
itself,
break down. But
I will be prepared.
But we're doing the same.
Yeah.
1 out of 3. We get 1 out of the first 3, right? In
Yeah,
3?
yeah. Like, basically, unlike Fear itself and Masters of Horror Season 2 to a lesser extent, I will actually be well equipped to be like, these episodes really are good for you, these are for you, and then Season 7's just a fucking hodgepodge, because that's all the British ones. But it'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. So... yeah, I'm so looking forward to doing that when we get around to it. Anyway, one last thing we should mention: Shelley Duvall died. I'm sure you saw that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I saw a picture of her on some site, but there was no RIP thing, so I didn't know until Chris sent it on the thing. So yeah. What a bummer. The first thing I thought was I still need to see Nashville, but it's not like a movie. That one seems like it's going to be a tough one.
Nashville's a movie?
It seems long and boring. Yeah, Nashville is a movie. Robert Altman did it, and Shelley Duvall's in it. It's got a crazy cast. Shelley Duvall isn't one of the main characters, but she didn't really make a whole lot of movies, and I just know that she was in it, and I didn't really like anyone else in the movie. I don't know. Yeah, I want to say I didn't really like anyone else in the movie when I lived in Nashville and we got the movie from the library, and I couldn't do it because it was just 70s. I think I'm going to eat it up now, but some 70s boring auteur about country music or whatever. I don't want anything to do with that. But
when you said Nashville,
sign me up.
In the conversation, I was thinking, wasn't there a TV series of?
Oh,
okay, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure
probably.
It's terrible.
I would not.
I don't know. I don't even know why I'm saying that.
Dude, Ronnie Blakely's in the movie. Nancy's mom in Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah.
Nice.
So I looked through Shelley's movie career, and the best thing that I came up with that I did not know was she was in Suburban Commando with Christopher Lloyd and Hulk Hogan. I forgot completely about her existence. And Undertaker's in that. Red hair taker.
So I have seen a Shelley Duvall film in the theater. I've seen Suburban Commando.
Dude, that's awesome.
At least that. Well, also, Robert Altman did Popeye with Shelley Duvall, too. So she was in Nashville first and then Cast as Olive Oil, and the connection between those movies.
I never had an interest in seeing Popeye, but...
well, my dad would show me as a kid, and it was terrible. You're like, Robin Williams is Popeye? How could this go wrong? But I guess now that if you revisit it, it's pretty cool. But when you're a kid, it was kind of disappointing. And also as an adult, adults were disappointed with it too. So, but it sounds awesome. You tell me the 8-year-old. What year was it when I was 8? So 89. 1989. Robin Williams is Popeye.
Dude, it actually has a kind of cool cast, including Donald Moffat, who was Gary in The Thing. So I'm good with this. I would watch it, I think.
Yeah, I definitely need to do a revisit. All right. before we go down the rabbit hole of Popeye the Sailor Man, Robert Altman.
Yes, we are going to wrap this up, and oh God, we'll be back in a week or whatever. So it's been fun, and thanks for coming and doing this, Kevin. And we'll be back next time. See ya.
Yeah. All right. Good night, Chris. Good night, Kent.
Good night, David Gordon Green.
Good night. You got it. Perfect.